For the upcoming right-hander, brake 30 meters later and ease off the pressure.
Hello, good evening and welcome ladies and gentlemen to another evening of top tier racing action in the SimRacing International GT3 Championship Season 10 as brought to you on the premier sim racing platform available only on PC known as iRacing. Proudly powered and sponsored by Trophy.ai and SimCoach, this of course is the series that looks to decipher who is the master or mistress of the GT3 class machine over 10 incredible rounds of racing action. And here we are today then for round number 4 of 10 and we've made our way to Italy for the Mugello circuit, or known in full as the Autodromo Internazionale del Mugello. A circuit that's perhaps coming into more popularity as time has gone on, with sweeping bends, many of them high speed, and also rapid fire direction changes, plus its elevation changes which are intermingled into the mix. It's not going to feel as much of a far cry from Portimão as it is indeed the distance between Portugal and Italy between the two circuits, because much like the previous round, we're a circuit that's going to feel like a roller coaster ride of emotions, and also being behind the wheel lap after lap, our drivers will need to drill in the absolute perfect lap, because every millimetre matters most when you're trying to go for the fastest lap out there, both in qualifying and also when you're trying to stay one step ahead of your rivals in the race. However, get it wrong and you may find yourself vulnerable at the next 3 braking zone, or 30 for the worst in the gravel zones, and you may end up losing more places than you can count as quickly as that. But as we're walking all to this live broadcast from circuit side, you're tuning in right now to Split B, and you can tune in only on YouTube at youtube.com and search for SimRacing International or 30 SRI, and then you can be tuning in on the SimRacing International YouTube channel, to which we say hello to a good number of you in the YouTube chat. Don't be shy, feel free to say hi and let us know how you're doing today and who you're here to cheer on, because as always, it's just as much you guys and girls at home, the fans, that make this as exciting as the racing that goes on circuit week in, week out. But as we get set, of course, and see our drivers in Split B, that's Pro and Evo, get on here. Well, in the commentary booth you have myself, my name is Paul Walsh, also known as TX121 or Brit in the Spit, depending on what media you follow me on, and I'll bring you all your racing action as this season unfolds. And of course in parallel, if you're looking to tune into Split A, which does have our elite and also our premier drivers, you can be tuning in simultaneously on the SimRacing International YouTube channel, and then you'll be in the highly capable hands of Joe Glass and Dara Thacker. But as we get ready to roll our way into this round then, well, what is the story after a tumultuous round number 3? So as we make our way into it, well, let's take a look at the calendar once again. And as we can see, last time out on the 9th of October, it was the Portimão Grand Prix circuit in Portugal. The first 2 rounds at the Hungary and Circuit Zandvoort had seen similarities across both classes. It had seen the same 3 drivers finish inside the podium positions, and in the Pro class, we got to see over the first 2 rounds the same 3 drivers finish on the podium in exactly the same order. Menno Bloem ahead of Stephen Codman, ahead of Vincent Lodder. Meanwhile, in the Evo class, well, it was the same 3 drivers at the very top, including Steve Rubino and Dave Collier, and also we did see into the mix there none other than what was some of his rivals, how Andy Chell has broken his way into the top 3, as we'll see very shortly, and he's demoted the other drivers of the field further on down. But what it does mean is that as we've made our way into round number 3, everything suddenly got turned upside down at Portimão, because it was the situation whereby there was drama at the very front of the field in the Pro class, with the teammates of Vincent Lodder and Menno Bloem seeing each other off the road on the opening lap and enabling Stephen Codman to come on through to victory. And meanwhile in the Evo class, well, at the very front, it was none other than Steve Rubino who roared and romped his way away to victory, but we saw some absolutely incredible performances from the likes of Andy Chell, and indeed other drivers such as Dave Collier having a nightmare day in the office, and therefore now having to regroup and get themselves set heading into this round. But after this round we remain in Italy, because next time out it will be heading to the neighbouring Imola circuit of the Autodromo Internazionale Enzo Edinfo Ferrari, where we wrapping up the first half of the season campaign. But as we come into this one, let's talk a bit more about the points then, because we've given you a quick summary of the opening 3 rounds, but where do the points exactly stand, and where are the tighter stories or the bigger narratives? Well, we start off with the top 12 in the Pro Class Championship, and as we can see, Stephen Codman now holds a 38-point lead over Menno Bloem, with the Axis Sport Blue driver taking his first win of the season last time out. He wasn't quite able to put it on pole. Indeed, the accolade of pole position went once again to Menno Bloem, who put himself on pole by a good couple of attempts. However, it was Codman who evaded the altercation between Bloem and Lodder and ended up just gradually walking away. However, do keep in mind that Codman did not have it all his own way at Portimão, and he was under pressure throughout the entirety of the race from the likes of none other than Robin Noel Brown, and therefore he definitely had to keep his head down, and also Nick Stubb, who at some points looked to be the fastest out there, but couldn't quite keep the pace all the way through the race. But where does this leave the SimRacing team Lowlands 2 and 1 drivers of Menno Bloem and Vincent Lodder? Well, it leaves them having to settle their differences, and indeed they were called into what was the team principal's room, I do believe straight after the race at Portimão. Indeed, both drivers there had a talking to, much like you can imagine what was a bit of a talking to between and Toto Wolff, Nico Rosberg and Lewis Hamilton for the infamous Catalonia Grand Prix incident of Formula 1 many a year ago. In fact, I think we're getting to a decade since that happened now. But the point stands that Menno Bloem has dropped to second, having picked up 2 firsts and now a 9th place added to his tally. And for Vincent Lodder, 2 thirds have been followed up by an 8th place, and indeed he sits the third 34 points behind. David Hutchison, the Axis Sport Blue driver, he tried to keep Codman as honest as possible as they went racing over the course of that round. And what we got to see is Hutchison was close, but not quite close enough, and in the end it all went wrong for Hutchison just as it was going so right, and it was a non-finish for him in his Ford Mustang. Adam Baker for LS Racing, well, he landed his best result of the season with a 4th place there, and as a result moves to 5th, only a further 12 points behind, and he's only 2 ahead of Jared Love, who right now, after a brilliant season opener, the Scotsman seems to be declining in form, and well, drama caught him out in the early stages at Portimão, and the DC Motorsport driver's got to try and put it all back together. Conversely, Moonshiners Racing Club's Corvette 06 GT3 driver Liam Fraser, he's now moved into 7th place, as a result to continue to improve there for him, and he's only ahead of Christopher Starswell for Simcast Racing Team UK based on result countback, and it's Nick Starb, the man who pulled off a 3rd place last time out at Portimão, after non-finishing the season opener of 14th in round number 2. He'll be glad that his performances are starting to shine on through, and he is definitely going to be the one to watch out for today if he can move even higher up the ranks. Simon Clifton sits in 10th on 96 points, and he's 6 clear of Robin Noel Brown, with Jakub Krafik rounded off your top 12. As for your Evo class, well, the story here, it's similar in some respects, but different in others. Steve Rubino, with 2 wins of the 2nd place, he is now starting to storm clear. He was, of course, equal points with Dave Collier going into the previous round, with the 2 of them exchanging 2nd and 1st places over the first 2 rounds. However, Collier's nightmare round of an 11th place finish means that right now Steve Rubino for Hobo Racing is extracting a lead, and he'll want to extrapolate it even further. But the Irishman will chase him down, there's no doubt about it, and Andy Chell, meanwhile, many would argue that the Hungary, if it wasn't for his altercation in the early stage of the race with James Howarth. Could he have picked up a podium there, and could he be much closer? Well, the thing is, that's happened. It's by the by, a 5th of the 10th in rounds 1 and 2, but he finally picked up his first podium of the season in round number 3. A brilliant podium. He was absolutely ecstatic about it when we had the post-round interview with him, and the QMS Motorsport Aston Martin driver now sits in 3rd on 192 points, 28 off the top 2. He's only ahead of Rob Gregg by 6 points, and the Moonshiners Racing Club drivers here today looking very strong already in the practice sessions that we've seen earlier this week, with Denny Plugger for MJK Sim Racing a further 8 points behind. And right now you've got to feel for the Dutchman, because after a double 3rd place, and that was the name that we forgot when we were trying to regale what was the first 2 rounds of the Evo season, whereas Rubino and Collier exchanging 1st to 2nd, and Denny Plugger, who was 3rd and was comfortably in that 3rd place, well, that 14th place finish last time out Portimão costing the Dutchman dear and dropping him right into the thick of a fight for 3rd. Martin Brandon, he's not too far behind, but unfortunately not on the grid today due to personal circumstances, as I'm to understand it. So therefore the privateer right now will fall backwards to a degree, and we're hoping for more later on in the season. And Gareth Newton for GPX SimSport Vertex really brings in the second half of this field with the top 6. They're quite a considerable way away, and then it is 48 points to Gareth Newton. We're only 2 behind him. Paul Maffey there for Phoenix Racing Red, and Jan Nagy for Iris Racing, and Stuart Rice for Phoenix Racing Red. They complete your Evo top 10. No points behind, but indeed result count back beating the Delta. Alex Boniface sits in 11th for DXT Motorsport Zemix, and then we do see David Pilcher in 12th there, a further 20 off, and continuing to get stronger in his BMW M4 Evo. And many of you may remember the team at Simcast Racing Team UK didn't expect anything out of their BMWs at Portimão, and Pilcher pulled off an absolutely brilliant 9th place there, and he was absolutely ecstatic about that. But how do the Teams Championship stand? And a reminder, of course, these teams are split across both splits, Split A and Split B. Some teams are entirely in one lobby, some teams are split across 2 lobbies. And as we can see, that right now it is Axis SimSports Blue who are leading the way on 498 points to 494 there of Vulcan Motorsport Red. And indeed, the 2 teams have swapped places, but perhaps most prominently is Axis SimSport Blue have leapt the way into lead from 3rd place, but they'll know they'll be hard pressed to try and hold on to that lead. Then it's quite a sizable 64 points back to Phoenix Racing Blue. On the rise, haven't gone from 5th to 3rd, but they know they've got the pressure on them from Vulcan Motorsports Gold, who've also risen from 7th to 4th. Both teams there looking very strong as the season is going on. DC Motorsport, meanwhile, they continue to hold firm inside the top 5 despite a difficult round last time out, and on 380 points, whereas we can see they're only the best part of 26 ahead of Moonshiners Racing Club, who have perhaps been the biggest gainers of Portugal, having moved all the way from 11th to 6th, but look how tight it is in the second half of the Teams Championship standings, top 10, because from them it's only 10 points to Phoenix Racing Red, then a further 12 points to SimCoach, and a further 2 to both Dark Queen Racing, or DWR, and GPX SimSport Vertex. So tight between these final 5 teams inside the top 10, only 24 points between them, and then only a further 4 points behind is the sister GPX SimSport team of Xenon on 326. So it really is all to play for right now in the second half of the top 10, and any of our top 5 driving teams could be reeled right into that at a moment's notice. But with a recap of the standings, let's come on to our circuit for today. And of course, it is the Grand Prix layout of the Mugello circuit. Located near Scarpiera e Sapiero in Florence, in the Tuscany region of Italy, this circuit stands 3.25 miles in length or 5.24 kilometers, depending on your preference of units. 15 corners, the majority of them being fast, pace, sweeping bends, and many of them as well entangled in direction changes. And that's going to be the big theme around here. You need a car that is incredibly nimble through the corners and able to carry the speed with confidence. If you can't, then you will struggle. And on top of that as well, when you do get to the straight, such as the run out of Bucine Corner at turn number 15, all the way up and over and down the start for this straight, it is going to be where you sit there languishing. In fact, you're going to be at least 2 to 3 miles behind the rest of your rivals. But as the drivers make their way on around this circuit, they'll need to make sure they absolutely use the tarmac to the maximum and know where to position the car, because once you get into the flow and the rhythm on this circuit, the only thing that can stop you is the gravel or entirely getting it wrong. But as our drivers get set and ready to go racing then, well, let's make our way back to circuit side, ladies and gents, because of course, the one thing we always want to see is what's going on circuit side, and right now we are in the throes of the final 15 minutes or so of our qualifying session. And how do things stand after the best part of 43 minutes of qualifying so far? Well, what we're seeing is we have got a complete shake-up towards the top, because Robin Niall Brown is currently the fastest driver in this qualifying session, albeit his car livery has decided not to load on. We'll see if we can get that repaired in between what is qualifying and going into the race. But Niall Brown definitely having a qualifying session right now to be remembered, but only by 5 thousandths over Peter Duke. And the DC Motorsport driver, after a difficult round at Portimão, he's now back on true form. And, well, many of you may remember, all the way back in Season 8, Peter Duke was very strong here in a battle with Ricardo Luis Pereira. And, well, the two drivers absolutely went toe-and-toe around here in their Acuras lap after lap. And, well, it definitely seemed to be that the Mugello circuit favoured both of them. And, well, in the end, it was the incredible finale to that race. We won't reveal exactly how it all played out, but it was a split B race to be remembered. And while Peter Duke roars his way on down through turn number 15, he'll be looking to channel the importance of that 6.3 litre V8 engine behind the Mercedes, and indeed he'll be looking to use every little bit of power as he roars his way on the straightaways in towards the next braking zone, because of course we do have that incredibly long start for this straight, which really contrasts the rest of the circuit and the fact there's no other long straights around here. It's just the one. It's all about corner exit at turn number 15 that could set you up for success. So high downforce circuit, and we can expect all drivers to be running a lot of rear wing, but those who run a little bit less and can get away with it, they may just gain on the straights. Somebody steps wide there, and I believe that might be an off of Robert McNaughton there, who's ejected himself stage right. But from our overall provisional pole sitter of Peter Duke, as he's moved himself ahead of Robin Noel Brown there by 31 thousandths, well, what's going on in Evo? And what we can see here is in Evo class, it's Rob Gregg who's currently the fastest of everybody, albeit only by a tenth, if that, over Steve Rubino. And Greg right now in the Aston Martin will be thinking that the things are starting to head in the right direction. Now, the only thing that he's got to consider here is the fact we have had a balance of performance update to our machinery coming into this round. It's only recently happened as of, I believe, earlier today. And well, the balance of performance update has only affected, as we're to understand it, 2 cars in the GT3 class. The first one, the Aston Martin Vantage Evo, where we do believe that its top end speed has been affected quite negatively. It's lost out a little bit on the straight, and also we have seen some BOP update for the Porsche 992, and Denny Ploger immediately jumps to the top there as soon as we reference the Porsche, pulls it into the pit lane, and well, Ploger right now becomes camera shy for a brief moment. In fact, he's found the perfect way to hide himself from every single camera, and well, Denny Ploger currently provisionally fastest now in the Evo class. So it is the Porsches and also the Aston Martins that have seen the BOP adjustments, but will those BOP adjustments make a big difference, or will they not? That's what we're going to try and see here as our drivers continue to get themselves set towards the end of qualifying. But as we do see James Fraser making his way on around here, and right now James definitely has had a positive season so far, but he'll be hoping for a little bit more here today. I think right now he really just wants to land his big result of the season. He hasn't quite had that big standout moment. Indeed, many drivers could say that, and we've got a lot of drivers who are on the rise. Another one, Stuart Rice for Phoenix Racing Red. He's proven so far this season that ever since he's been moved to the Evo class and gone to the Aston Martin, that things are starting to click quite comfortably. As he makes his way all the way down through turn number 15, very tentatively making his way through the corner there. And we'll see X and out right now, definitely looking as though Rice has got this all nicely hooked up. But what's he going to be as he heads towards that timeline? Well, it's not going to be a valid lap. He's going to go again there, and I believe that might have been a warm-up lap instead. You can understand he'll be getting himself in the zone. He'll be feeling as comfortable as he possibly can as he heads down towards turn number 1. And right now for Rice, indeed many, it's coming towards the end of this session where the best lap times can be available, because track temperature will be at its highest or towards its highest, and also the most rubble will have been laid down, and therefore you can take the greatest confidence out of the circuit. The only thing is, of course, that you have to push quite hard, and well, in doing so, the only thing you can do there is potentially overdrive the car over that single lap and have it all go wrong. But as we do say hello to technical director at Simcast Racing Team UK, the one who's on the pit wall doing all the strategy work and calculating the times, is none other than Stephen Wilkinson. Good evening to you, Steve, and I hope you're doing well. Well, we do look to other Simcast Racing Team UK machines, and it's David Pilcher in his BMW M4 Evo, currently all the way down in 44th place. That's 15th in the Evo class, and well, he's not too far behind teammate Matthew Hunter, with the two drivers separated by the best part of what is a second at the moment, but on circuit they're not too far away from each other, and Hunter right now is trying to find a bit more time out there, and Pilcher will be trying to do the same. We also do have one driver who's yet to get a valid lap on the board, and that's LS Racing's Eduardo Andino, an Evo driver there. We have 48 drivers in attendance here today, which is absolutely brilliant to see. And right now, Andino, well, he wants to get a valid lap on the board, but I think he's taking his time, and well, in doing so, he hasn't got long left, but I think he's really trying to see out where he can get the best possible time in the shortest period of time possible. There is sometimes a bit of an art to, if you've got a 60-minute qualifying session or a whole hour, not necessarily pushing yourself too hard until you get yourself in towards the very end of the qualifying session, because that way you expend the smallest amount of energy for the biggest amount of gain. Whereas those drivers who decide to do an entire qualifying session, well, the one thing that they will have on their mind is the fact that they're going to be spending a whole hour behind the wheel of the car, and then they've got to spend a further hour or so behind the wheel of the car under race conditions, and that can be quite exhausting even if they are a typical endurance driver. But coming down towards the timeline then, here we go with Andino. What's he going to be able to do here as he crosses that line? And the answer is going to be not a valid lap again. So Andino goes across that line, and he's still got more to do there. And right now, tripping over a couple of other cars around him, that's not going to be too comfortable. But we have a bit of discomfort there. Well, he'll be hoping now with 11 minutes left, he's able to put something together as he heads around, and as our drivers do. We do see the question there being asked by Stephen Wilkinson, which is timing available? And the answer to that is yes, it is. And live timing has been now posted in the YouTube chat for you, good sir. And to anybody who is tuning in right now, you can pick up the live timing there, and that will be able to give you all the information you need with regards to where drivers are out of the circuit, relative lap times, and also sector times, I do believe. The equivalent of TSL if you tuned into Live Motorsport and you like to follow live timing there. Use that link as provided in the YouTube chat, ladies and gentlemen. But coming from what we're providing in the chat to what we're providing on the screen, well, I think it's about time we've got an on-board lap with one of our drivers. And let's jump on board with Pro Championship leader Stephen Codman as he takes us around for a flying lap of the Mugello circuit. So across the timeline he goes, flat out here as he heads up towards the top end of 5th gear. Will he get to 6th? Well, he's extended that gear ratio quite high. I suspect not. What he will do is look to his left-hand side and brake there just after the 100-metre board and trail brake his way all the way through turn number 1. Here, abusing what is the camber of the road, over to the right-hand side for turn number 2. It's going to be left into right here. It's a quick flick to the left and a quick flick to the right. Don't take the apex curve too early, otherwise you'll hit the sausage curbs and that will send you out wide. But Codman does it exactly right and now heads up towards turns 4 and 5. A similar sequence, but a bit of a tighter run between the two apexes here. Left into right he goes, but it's a shorter gap, so therefore you've got to be quicker on the direction change. He makes his way through the second chicane and now down into turn 6 and 7, the third chicane in the sequence, right into left here. And what you'll see is that turn number 7 opens up more as he exits out, but he's got to get the car immediately over to the left to open up into Arrabbiata 1, turn number 8 through that long right-hander, and it continues into Arrabbiata 2 as he comes through turn number 9 and over the crest. He's down to the blind summit and look at his brake marker in towards turns 10 and 11. Right into left here as he comes on through, and really the mirror of the chicanes we saw earlier on in the lap as he exits out the medium speed sweep and heading in towards turn number 12. Here you've got to brake as late as you dare as he roars his way in towards it. Go for that late apex, a little bit of understeer, just creeps the car away, but he gets it back together. And then turns 13 and 14 left into right here, completely flat out and going in towards the braking zone shortly for turn number 15. Well, now for Codman, it's all going to be about one corner in the dream as he roars around for he gets a nice early apex, puts the left-hand side tyres onto that curb, pulls the car around. He's also got the slipstream in front of him, and that's going to help him. And what's Codman going to achieve by the time he gets towards the timeline here? Well, we're about to see, and well, as he does cross that line for Codman, it is going to be, well, is it going to be more than 6th place? It's 3rd. It's a 45.704. It's 1.7 tenths off of the fastest time set by Robin Milton, but Codman is moving up the order, and well, that's a good performance there from the Axis Supersport driver, and Menno Bloem is only 2 tenths ahead, well, not 2 tenths, 200ths I should say ahead of Codman, and it's 1.5 tenths to Robin Milton in the Acura, and we do know the Acura has definitely been tampered with when it comes to what is balanced the performance over the last couple of seasons, and we are now seeing the change whereby the Acura seems to be a very particular car, and if you can get the most out of it like Milton has, you may be able to put it on pole. As we say hello to Denny Ploger there, who says for us to have fun in the quarantine booth, and Denny, I hope you're doing well, good sir. We have just noticed that you're not currently out there at the moment, and you're sitting on pole. Well, congratulations, that provisional pole in the Evo class. We look forward to seeing whether it will stand, but indeed, right now, I hope you're having a relaxing time in the pit lanes. That's a very impressive lap of the Porsche 992. And we also say hello to Taito Nation there, or in other words, James Howarth, who says that his frames per second issue, or his FPS issue, has been resolved. Alternatively, you could take that to mean it is his first-person shooter issue. Perhaps he got an addiction to Battlefield 6, which has recently been released, and someone in the team has been able to pull him away from his first-person shooter and make him get back in the car and go racing. Well, we've given you 2 potential stories there, ladies and gentlemen. You choose which one to believe. Of course, You'll know which one it is, and that one is the fact there is, of course, his frames per second issue, which he talked about last time when we had him in the interview room, and indeed it was a little bit of a dark interview because understandably his frustration is showing, but to be fair, with the performances he's put in despite his frames per second issue right now, well, if we do unlock the full potential of James Hayworth, I wouldn't be surprised if he'll be right back towards the front of the field before all is said and done. But speaking of things all said and done, well, as our drivers continue to head towards the end of it, we do have just over 6 minutes now. Are there any big surprises out there in terms of drivers who are not normally qualified where they currently are? Well, one surprise is the fact that we are seeing a couple of quite quick drivers fall down the ranks. Dean Sheesby from Moonshiners Racing Club, he is down in 17th place as he goes all the way out onto the gravel there, coming through Arabiata 2. That's not the way to do it. He quickly straight lines it and brings himself back on, but with that, that's going to be an aborted lap, and we'll be very frustrated at that. Nick Stubb has just leapt up to second, only 300ths if that off of Robin Milton's pole time, and Milton's making his way back out the pit lane as I hear the Acura turn up with its 3.5 litre V6 twin turbo engine, and right now Milton feels as though he's at risk of not being able to hold on to that pole position or a spot on the front row. So therefore, everyone's having to respond to each other here. It is not over yet in this qualifying session. Sheesby definitely a bit further down compared to where we'd expect him to typically be. Also another driver. Well, we do normally say that he gets stronger as the season goes on, but Robin Pownier right now, all the way down in 30th overall, 26th in terms of the pro drivers. And keeping in mind, of course, the way these drivers will qualify is that they will qualify and intermingle with each other. We do not see the pros start ahead of the Evos. If an Evo driver out-qualifies a pro, they start exactly where they out-qualified them on the grid. There is no class segregation. So therefore, right now for Pownier, being down in 30th place and having 4 Evo drivers in front of him amongst a medley of pro drivers as well, this is going to feel a little bit awkward for the Sim Coach driver. And I suspect he's got the pace there, but things have not quite come together so far. What we've also seen, if we focus a bit more on the Evo class, well, that brilliant visual pole out from Denny Ploger right now that is looking unbeatable with Rob Gregg, who really impressed in the early stage of the qualifying session. He's in second right now in terms of where the Evo drivers are, and only 200ths of the time set by Ploger. Well, the point being, then your third driver is Steve Rubino. He's exactly where we'd expect him to be typically. Yanagi is well in 4th, Andy Cho in 5th there. But what is conversely a bit of a surprise is that we do have all the way down in 18th at the moment, 47th overall, Dave Collier, the man who right now is second in the Evo Championship, is struggling here for DC Motorsport. Things are not coming together at all. And, well, the number 16 driver here, he's going to need something magical soon, because if he's starting this far back, this is going to be a race of damage limitation unless he's planning to pull off an absolute miracle of a race. Don't say it's impossible, of course, ladies and gents. We have seen some miracle performances in previous seasons of the SimRacing International GT3 Championship. But right now for Dave Collier, he's really setting himself up here for a struggle today. And, well, the Mugello circuit, in terms of overtaking the importance of qualifying is very important at this circuit. Overtaking is possible, but it's costly, and also you have to run in a wall of dirty air for a very long time, and that is why we should say Dave Collier right now definitely will be looking at this and thinking we've got to find something, and we've got to find it quick. But as he heads down the start finish straight, he releases his teammate behind, who was in the slipstream, and we both crossed that timeline there, and I believe that might be his teammate of none other than Wayne Douglas, who's just come across the line. In fact, that's not Wayne, that's Jared Love, who's just made his way through. There goes Jared, the Scotsman, and he's currently 7th fastest overall and in the pro class. I think he's feeling a little bit better. Now, we are hearing that there's been a bit of a change to the sounds of the Aston Martin, and, well, Tyto Nation not too happy about what's happened there. And, well, if so, James Hayworth currently in the pit lane. I think they're seeing what they can do to change the sound of the car. Car off in the rear of the picture, by the way. I wonder, is that Mark Johnson who's had a bit of a step sideways? I don't think it is, because he's in a Ford, but somebody definitely got it wrong there, coming up the hill through turns 2 and 3. Here is Mark Johnson. Meanwhile, he had a bit of an excursion on a previous lap, but he's back on the tarmac right now, and he's got it all together. As he gets it together now in 12th place currently, the Access Sport driver here hoping for a little bit more. Also a surprise, all the way down in 39th, the Split Track Esports driver of Fortis Katios, where he crossed the timeline there and he moves up to 34th, so he improves by a few places to a 47.376. But after that incredible running round number 2 at Circuit Zandvoort, as the flames spit out the back of that McLaren in quick fire, indeed almost firing off a machine gun there in terms of how quickly they came out. Well, right now for Katios, this is looking to be a qualifying session that is one not to be remembered. Tucking in behind Nick Stubb, who backs off there, and Katios was getting so close at that point. I think Stubbs decided, you know what, that's it for me. I'm not going to improve from second, being 300ths down. Well, we can see here, this man, he will be one of the lowest qualifying. In fact, he will be the lowest qualified pro driver here if things stay as they are, unless he can find some magic on this lap or his final lap afterwards. Jamie Bardwell just a little bit further up the road, and, well, Bardwell into 31st place at the moment, 27th of the pro drivers. So it does seem as though the McLaren drivers are struggling a little bit here in the pro class. The McLaren might not be favourable, even though you would typically expect the McLaren to go very well at a circuit with some quite quick corners, albeit it's these direction changes that do not help the McLaren, because it is a very pitched on its nose, this car, for a mid-engine rear-wheel drive machine. You can see in the body language of the aerodynamics of the car that everything is pitched onto the very front, and the idea is that helps the car get as much rotation as possible, but it makes it a very unsteady car when you have got quick-fire direction changes, such as we do have the best part of 4 chicanes here, albeit they are quite separated chicanes. They're not your traditional chicane like you would think of at, say, Monza, for example, or Imola, where we'll be next week, but because of those direction changes, the McLaren will feel quite a difficult car to get right around here, because setup wise you'll need to make it even more stable on the rear end, but of course you take away its natural rotation, so you sacrifice corner speed in the higher speed corners for stability through the chicanes, but you lose time to gain time, and in the end it normally cancels out, and that's why we're seeing the highest placed McLaren at the moment is Jason Hodgson, who's in 14th place here. I think he'll have wanted a lot more, and with 50 seconds left on the clock, this is looking to be a qualifying session where the McLarens will struggle, and it is looking as though it's going to be an Acura that's going to be on pole, as Robin Milton right now is sat in the pit lane. He's hidden behind the glass there. We can't quite see the car, but you can briefly see it. He's just waiting to see where he's got the job done, as Adam Baker makes his way out onto the circuit. This might just be to practice exiting the pit lane and make his way down towards turn number 1, just to get a bit of experience of what it's like to break into the opening corner when he's left the pits, if he hasn't practiced that already, because there's a very different entry speed into turn 1 when you're coming out the pits. And well, you can see him immediately step aside there and let him, the DC Motorsport car, gone past, and that being the car of Wayne Douglas, who makes his way on down towards turns 4 and 5. But as he does so, the clock strikes 0 in 3, 2, 1. So whoever has just gone onto a lap, they're allowed to finish it, but those who are coming to the end of it, that's going to be it. So those in the pit lane, they can't go out again. And right now, it does look as though Wayne Douglas is going to be one of the last drivers to finish this qualifying session. Tim van den Ham, he comes towards the timeline. He's down in 21st at the moment. And as he crosses it, well, van den Ham, does he improve? The answer is no. And quite noticeably as well, I'm noticing we're missing one of the SimRacing Team Lowlands Ferraris we have not got here today. None other than Vincent Lodder. Now, I suspect he may have missed this round due to personal circumstances, and he'll be back in full force in what will be a week's time. But that's a surprise, and that's going to open up some opportunities, because we have seen that Lodder and Bloem have both been very close in qualifying typically. Menno Bloem currently in 4th place in this session, as we do have Wayne Douglas now heading towards the end of qualifying. He comes out to turn number 12 in towards 13 and 14, currently 13th. Not improving on this lap to date, but he's got one more sector where he can find some time, and it is in that last sector where he has actually been quite weak so far compared to Peter Duke, who's had one of the best final sectors of everybody. Well, right now Wayne Douglas by comparison has previously been the best part of half a second down, so if Douglas can find that half a second, he'll suddenly leap his way up the order. But what's it going to be here as he crosses the timing line? It's going to be no such success there for Douglas. He will stay in 13th place as Matthew Hunt across the line as well. And well, from there it'll be then Adam Baker who comes on through, and that will be qualifying complete, ladies and gentlemen. So it's Robin Milton who takes overall and pro pole, his first of the season in the Acura NSX Evo, the 45.538. He's 300s faster. Nick Stubb, who'll join on that front row, and Stephen Codman, the Pro Championship leader, will be just behind third, with rival Menno Bloem joining him on the second row of the grid. And as for your Evo class, Yanagi got it done right at the end of the session to steal away the Evo pole position from Denny Ploger, and Nagy will start in 19th overall, with second place Evo driver Denny Ploger 24th, and Rob Gregg third place of the class in 26th, with Steve Rubino two places further back. 28th there will be your Evo Championship leader. So an interesting qualifying session, and indeed some absolute standout performances, also some shocks, and a big one being the fact we did see right towards the end, well, a bit of a difficult performance from the likes of Gareth Newton and Robert McNaughton at 11th and 12th there, and the McLarens have really struggled here today, and James Bostock as well down in 33rd place. That is not going to be a happy story for him. He's got a lot of work to do over the distance of this one, but thankfully he's got an hour to try and make amends for what's been a difficult qualifying session as the circuit gets ready to fall silent and we get ready to head into the 5-minute break before we do see our drivers make their way onto the grid. So we do now have our 5-minute warm-up session here, which gives our drivers an opportunity to just give themselves a little bit of a comfort break, a bit of a refresher, and also make sure they've got the right setup on the car before they do make their way to the grid for the race today. Now, what will drivers typically do in this session? Well, some, they'll decide to get out of the rig, stretch their legs, and also take a bit of a breather, perhaps also go to the bathroom. Others, meanwhile, they'll want to get back in the car immediately and make sure the adrenaline keeps flowing. And Stuart Rice is one of those drivers. He's not an adrenaline junkie, or indeed any of the drivers are not adrenaline junkies per se, but the point being that they want to keep the rhythm alive, particularly at a circuit like Mugello, where your brake markers, they are few and far between at some corners, so it really does come down to rhyme and rhythm around here, and that's why you want to keep doing the laps in order to make sure that you're getting everything absolutely dialed in. Although I do believe their Rice might be time back to the pits, or just stepping aside. Sinue Alvarez, meanwhile, well, the Porsche 992 heads on through. But you say hello there to Chantal Ploger van der Veen, who, of course, partner of Denny Ploger, and I hope you're doing well, Chantal, and indeed your dear fellow has done very well to qualify in second place in the Evo class, albeit a little bit behind Jan Nagy, who's out qualifying by the best part of a couple of attempts. And again, anything can happen in the race, as Alvarez there gets it wrong, coming through the chicane and puts the car to the barrier. But I think he'll be out the way now, and I think he'll be happy to be back in the pits, as we do see Matt Stace heading on around in a very colourful liveried flatline racing Mercedes AMG Evo. And this AMG has been a very interesting car so far this season. Many would say it's the Ford Mustang, but with a better fuel consumption, with a little bit less top-end speed. And, well, it does mean that really the Mustang and the Mercedes, with a difference of a couple of miles an hour at the very top end, and also fuel efficiency, two very similar cars. One other difference, of course, being that the Mercedes does have the engine mounted closer towards the middle of the car. They are both front engine rear-wheel drive, but what you would say is that the Mercedes is front mid-engine rear-wheel drive. Now, that sounds a bit odd, but hear us out here. Front engine rear-wheel drive means that the engine is ahead of where the driver sits, so it's at the front of the car, and the rear wheels do all the driving action or where the power is deployed. Front engine mid-engine rear-wheel drive is where you have the engine in front of the driver, but you have it behind the front axle, so it is closer towards the centre and therefore more carefully balances the centre of mass of the car. The Aston Martin Vantage Evo is also another car like that, because the idea is the more centralised you can have the engine, typically you want it more towards the rear, to be fair, as you get natural rotation in the car, but the more centralised you have it, the more balanced the weight distribution of the car, and therefore the more easily the car can be set up for success. The Ford Mustang, meanwhile, well, that leans a little bit more towards front engine rear-wheel drive in the classic sense of the front-placed engine being closer to the front axle. So a slight difference there. And what we may be seeing in 2026, of course, is the arrival of a new entrant from Lexus. Sadly, and not on the iRacing simulator, their current machine, which has been racing for the best part of 11 years, the Lexus RCF GT3, which is in its Evo rendition currently and has been in Evo rendition for the best part of 6 years, if my memory serves me correctly. But next year, the rumour is that Toyota or Lexus, as a joint venture between the Japanese companies, with Lexus, of course, being the premium arm of Toyota, that we will be seeing head to the grid their new machine. And indeed, we don't know what the designation of it will be as of yet, but it has drawn a lot of inspiration from the Mercedes AMG Evo. And a little story there, I do believe this is true, is the fact that Toyota Gazoo Racing actually purchased and raced in GT World Challenge Asia a Mercedes AMG Evo in order to get all the data they needed to then be able to craft what's the best type of car they can run as a GT3 in the form of their new entrant. I do believe that's what they've done, and well, there's no better way to do it than copying somebody else's homework, to be fair. If you know it's up to a good job, why reinvent the wheel when you can simply take the work of another, legally of course, and then make your own spin on it with your own road car? Because of course these GT3 machines, they had to be homologation production cars, whereby they are based on a road car and they have to be produced with a certain number of units. You cannot create anymore in GT3 class racing a one-off special. You have to create a car which is purchasable on the high street, even if it is purchasable for a ludicrous amount of money, of which I can promise you one thing: nobody will be going out there tomorrow and just buying themselves a Ferrari 296 for spare change. A very expensive car there, because the road car of course does have a huge hybrid battery to go with it. But Max Dean right now having a big slide there going through turns 2 and 3, but gets it back together now, and the Ferrari 296 being one of the many cars out here which is a road car turned race car, and well, a lot of aerodynamic refinements to go from a road car to a GT3. Also a massive rear wing, plenty of weight reduction as well. These cars are very different from their road counterparts, but they can be traced back to cars that you'll find on the street. But as Dean comes towards the end of this warm-up session, indeed all the drivers do, well, ladies and gentlemen, Chris the Stars will right now be hoping that the stars align for him, as he qualified quite well in the Pro class, just outside the top 10 overall. And well, in that BMW, With stability in the Evo machine, he'll be looking to see whether he can sneak his way into the top 10. But without further ado, it's time to make our way to the grid, because it's time for 60 minutes of racing here at the Mugello Grand Prix circuit in Italy. So as our drivers make the way onto the grid, this is how they'll line up for our one and only race here today at the Autodromo Internazionale del Mugello. As we can see, starting on pole position for round number 4 of Split Season 10 Championship in the SimRacing International GT3 Championship, it is Robin Milton, pro and overall pole sitter for Phoenix Racing Grade, and delivers his first pole position of the season there with a brilliant lap that was only 300ths faster than what Nick Stubb was able to achieve. Stubb left it late for Vulcan and Fasters by Glass Tip Racing, but in the end, better late than never, they say, and he put himself on the front row, did the Dutchman, the best part of what was 8 attempts ahead of Stephen Codman. Codman takes third for Axis SimSport Red, ahead of Menno Bloem for SimRacing Team Lowlands 2. The two championship rivals will definitely be looking to do battle immediately from the outset, and then we will see Peter Duke starting in 5th place there for DC Motorsport, returning to the front rows of the grid. He starts off your 3rd row and will be confident that he can move forward here, because this is a circuit that has typically been a good hunting ground for the British driver. Robin Noel Brown, he looked fast at the start of qualifying, but over the distance, the GPX SimSport Xenon driver was demoted to 6th, but to be fair, only 2 attempts off a pole. He'll work with that. Had a Jared Love for DC Motorsport, who had a slow start to qualifying, but finally found the pace towards the end, the Scotsman. He starts 7th ahead of Adam Baker for Ellis Racing, who is the highest placed Porsche driver there, and showing the Porsche is not to be forgotten about even with the recent balance performance update. Then we have from the Ellis Racing driver, Liam Fraser for Moonshiners Racing Club, and when it'll be none other than Chris Jennings, who completes your top 10 for Axis SimSports Blue. As they all gradually make the way away now for what will be the formation lap. Starting in 11th, it'll be Krista Starsmore with a great qualifying performance there for the Simcast Racing Team UK driver, ahead of Mark Johnson for Axis SimSports Red. It was only 200ths between them, and then it was a rather salvageable 700ths for Wayne Douglas further behind in 13th place there for DC Motorsport, who gradually made his way up into the top 15 in qualifying, and he's joined on the 7th row of the grid by Jason Hodgson for Phoenix Racing Green. In 15th, it's David Hutchison for Axis SimSports Red, ahead of Tom Cordy for Phoenix Racing Green. Then we do have Dean Sheesby for Moonshiners Racing Club, ahead of James Howard for Dexterous Motorsports Zemex, and they complete a whole run of pro drivers. Because after that, starting in 19th place, you have your Evo pole sitter for Iris Racing. It's the Smiling Swede of Jan Nagy, ahead of Mark De Vries, who rounds off your top 20 there for SimRacing Team Lowlands 2. Outside the top 20, and a big congratulations to Jan Nagy for that brilliant pole lap in his class. Well, we continue the trend now of pro drivers with Tim van der Ham starting in 21st for SimRacing Team Lowlands 2, ahead of Simon Clifton, the privateer. And then it is Ross Young who begins your 12th row of the grid, ahead of 2nd place Evo driver Denny Plurger for MJK Sim Racing. Victor Van Zee starts in 25th for MJK Sim Racing behind his teammate, but ahead of Rob Gregg for Moonshiners Racing Club. And well, what was looking to be a provisional pole in the end was converted into a practical 3rd, and he'll be joined behind by Adam Smith for Euro Titans Endurance, and the 4th place Evo driver Steve Rubino, who starts on this grid 28th overall. Mark Van Mulken starts in 29th for SimRacing Team Lowlands 2, and round off your top 30 is Robin Pownier with a difficult qualifying performance for the Sim Coach driver in the Corvette Z06, with Jamie Bardwell at 31st there, ahead of Andy Chell for Quakemas Motorsport, who always performs better in the race compared to qualifying, but that's a good starting position in qualifying for the Evo driver, ahead of the All-Pro row of James Bostock for GPX SimSport Onyx, and Splitstrat Esports' Fotis Katios, who was the last place of your pro qualifiers. And then we did have on row number 18, Paul Maffey for Phoenix Racing Red, ahead of James Fraser for Moonshiners Racing Club, with Stuart Rice for Phoenix Racing Red, ahead of Callum Morrow for LS Racing. And then completing your top 40, Matt Stace for Flatline Racing, and Robert McNaughton for Dexterous Motorsports Quem. And outside the top 40 there, we've got a couple more rows to go. On row number 21, it will be Gareth Newton for GPX SimSport Vertex, ahead of Matthew Hunter for Simcast Racing Team UK. Dave Collier will begin this one in 43rd for DC Motorsport, ahead of Alex Boniface for Dexterous Motorsports Zemex. And the penultimate row of the grid, it'll be the combination pair of Eduardo and Dino for Ellis Racing, and David Pilcher for Simcast Racing Team UK. And on the final row, starting 47th, Sunui Alvarez for 9 Pegasus Panthera, and from the Spaniard to the Briton, it'll be Max Dean for Splitstrat Esports, who completes your order of 48. Well, as they all get themselves set, we're not too far away from going green flag racing for the 4th time this season, ladies and gentlemen. Indeed, we are not more than 4 corners and a straightaway. And as we can see here right now, Robin Milton, where he creeps and tiptoes his way around with Nick Stubb fully alongside. And these two drivers, well, it was 300ths between them in qualifying, but over the race distance, it could be much tighter than that. It could be much more. we will see by the time they come through the final quarter who is going to be the one who is going to be leading the way to victory and who is going to have to give the chase over 60 minutes of racing here in round number 4 of the SimRacing International GT3 Championship, powered by Trophy AI and SimCoach. You're tuning in, of course, to Split B, here live on the SimRacing International YouTube channel. And it's lights down, away we go for the 4th round of the championship here as Robin Milton looks to try and get the quickest possible start, but they roll the way down. And you can see Nick Stubb there intentionally held off to try and see what his rival was doing, but it's cost him dear. He's missed a gear, and as they come in towards turn number 1, it's going to be free wide here into the braking zone as we look to the blimp camera. It's going to be Menno Bloem looking around the outside, Stephen Codman on the inside, and in the middle is Stubb, who has to try and force the reverse Moses manoeuvre away from him, but coming underneath the tree line. And now back to us here when see Bloem falling backwards now, but battling side by side with Peter Duke. Codman and Stubb are still side by side as they come in towards turn number 3. Further back, Jennings, oh goodness me, someone's ejected sideways. That's Coggan off the road. Well, I'd see how that was. I believe that's Hodgson and Hutchison both getting caught up. Yarnagi's avoided all the chaos there. He's still leading in Evo in 16th place. Denny Ploger survived it as well, but behind is Rob Gregg, who's on a charge. Gregg is trying to get a bit closer. Victor Mancis looking around the outside. That's not going to work for the time being. And Fontes Katios has already gained 12 places overall. He's had a monster start, but back towards the front of the field, and after a bit of chaos further on down, which we'll get replays of in due course. Robin Milton right now leading and starting to pull away. And what you can see there, Nick Stubb 1.3 seconds back in that dirty end with the fighting with Codman. It has cost Stubb the opportunity to stay close to the leader, albeit now they've got to settle in and see how the tyres all progress. Anything can happen over the distance, and it normally does, to be fair. And well, I wouldn't be surprised if several drivers right now will be getting their heads down and thinking, okay, what do we do about this? Well, we will see, ladies and gentlemen, because right now we really are into the territory of single file formation for a bit. Wayne Douglas as well, 2 places gained. Christopher Sarswell, a place gained in front of him. So both these drivers have made a bit of progression, but as they come towards us and back towards the end of this lap, Yarnagi, well, he took the lead of the Evo Classic qualifying, bolted away a bit early on, but right now, look at this, Denny Ploger has caught up massively. Ploger is right there with him. Victor Van Ziest, his teammate, is acting as rear guard as Ross Young and Fontes Katios both queue up behind. There comes Ploger looking up the inside. Nagy goes deep. Nagy is struggling there in the McLaren early on, trying to get some tyre temperature. He's got none, and as they come down the start finish straight here, it's going to be side by side. Now, of course, this is in the early stages, but this could be important because Ploger will want to try and take position here and try to make sure that he's not the one riding in the dirty air. But on the straights, we can see that McLaren just a little bit faster in 5th and 6th gear, and then in towards the braking zone. Ploger looks at the move, can't quite find it, but sending a very strong message here to Nagy, which is, if you don't get this right, I'm going to be right there with you, putting you under pressure. And we ride on board looking back from the rear of the iRacing leader now as they come into turns 2 and 3. But that direction change, the body language of the car there from the Porsche behind, and not a good run for the chicane at all there from Ploger. Nagy, meanwhile, absolutely smooth through those corners. And, well, whatever it was on lap number 1, it doesn't seem to be hindering now on lap number 2. Although, of course, that's just the first 5 corners. We've got plenty more corners and plenty more miles to do before this lap is over. But Nagy now starting to settle into a rhythm. Perhaps just first lap nerves. They are a common thing. I'll tell you from experience, ladies and gentlemen, my racing days, and the fact that on the first lap you just want to get into a rhythm, and sometimes it takes more than that first lap, and that is where you lose and make the places. But right now Nagy close to breaking away here if he can. James Howarth meanwhile under a bit of pressure from Mark De Vries, who takes a quick look up the inside. De Vries gets the nose in, but that's not going to work. And as they go from right into left here, well, Howarth right now under pressure from De Vries, takes a bit of gravel with him, but De Vries won't be able to look for a move here into turn number 12. He's way too far back. Speaking of looking a bit further back, we see Jamie Bardwell in the McLaren chasing after Andy Chell, who's gained 1 place in class. Adam Smith looking up the inside of Bardwell there. That will be the fight for position in the pro class between those two, and Tom Cordy as well keeping him close company. And James Fraser here making his way on through as we do say hello to Liam Fraser, who's had technical issues and as a result has not been able to get this race going the way he's wanted to. We were wondering where his Corvette was because it had done a disappearing act and well, it's had to tow to the pits due to a technical issue. And I do believe, thankfully, Liam, you haven't impacted anybody's race as far as I can see, but I appreciate your concern there, and indeed the fact that you're concerned firstly did you impact anybody else just goes to show how much of a gentleman racer you are, which is 10 out of 10 good, sir, I must say. But as we focus on your brother James, he roars his way onwards. Well, Stuart Rice right now close behind. Both these drivers gaining 1 place in Evo since the start. Rice has got a bit of an overspeed, looks one way then the other. Fraser calls him out on it and says, no, you don't. And meanwhile, Rice says, yes, I do. And he looks all the way through the outside line because, of course, Canberra the road. Initially, he can go around that outside line if he can carry the momentum up the hill. But that push in the end, just too good in the traction zone. And as a result, James Fraser able to hold the place with Callum Morrow, the LS Racing driver, one of the biggest gainers in Evo since the start. 4 places gained. Well, I don't know how he managed to get there, but Morrow's absolutely done a brilliant start to this race. And we will shortly, ladies and gentlemen, getting a replay of the race start, and we get an idea of some of the mayhem and chaos that happened towards the very start, particularly, of course, what happened to Hutchison and Hodgson, who both ended up getting ejected at turns 4 and 5. And well, as Rice and Fraser continue to play the game of cat and mouse here, from them we go all the way back towards the front, and here's Robbie Milton after 5 minutes. And going towards the end of his 3rd lap on the circuit, and Milton in control at least for now, but Stubb keeping him honest, and Stephen Codman and Robin Noel Brown and Menno Bloem not too far behind either. And then you do have a 1 second gap to 6th place man Peter Duke, who's got Adam Baker, Mark Johnson, Jared Love and Wayne Douglas for company, and that will be your top 10, with Tim van den Ham having gained 8 places in class at the start, where he's up into 12th place, and Christoph Starsmore is Mr. Best of the Rest just in front of him in 11th. But let's take a quick replay look then, ladies and gentlemen, at what exactly happened at the start of the race. Now, this was the race start. We are going to focus on the car of, I believe it is going to be Jason Hodgson, who's going to become our centre of attention. Can we get a better camera angle here as they went green flag racing? Of course, in the foreground, you'll suddenly see, oh, goodness me, that's a jump scare. That's Menno Bloem coming to life and appearing out of nowhere. I think there's a bit of a latency issue, but Hodgson had a good start. 3 wide in front of him then as he went on down, tucked in directly behind the Ford Mustang of David Hutchison. Hutchison just being there. In fact, no, Hutchison was behind. That was a different Ford Mustang. I believe that was by the other Axis SimSport machines. But what we'll see here then is Hutchison in behind, and well, as they all came on through, what exactly happened to Hodgson? He was on the outside here. Oh, right, that was one car went wrong. Hodgson lost it with his own volition, and the Axis SimSport Ford Mustang, the red one, also got turned there, and that explains it. So the car ejected out wide, and well, that's how we pick up all the pieces then. So Hodgson just was in the wrong place at the right time to be scared, and as a result have the car go around to him, and that explains everything as we come back to your live racing, ladies and gentlemen, because that's the big incident we've had since the start of this race. We haven't really had any other major incidents so far since the beginning. Indeed, it's been a relatively calm start, although as soon as I say that, in fact, we did have this happen to both Chris Jennings and Rob Gregg on the open lap. I believe we're going to focus on Rob Gregg here, as we can see him in the Moonshiners Racing Club Aston Martin side by side for Arabiata 1, and that was Jennings going out wide, and suddenly Rob Gregg in solidarity said, well, go the other way then. I don't think he actually meant that. I think what actually happened was the rear of the car let go there as he tried to turn through the corner, perhaps had to lift off the throttle in reaction to Jennings getting it wrong, and Gregg in the end in the reaction sending his car sideways. But we now come back to your live racing with those major incidents covered. Indeed, it's been a relatively sedate opening few laps, in a good way, we should say. And Rob Gregg on the recovery drive now as he picks his way up into 39th place past Eduardo Andino. And Andino, who started right from towards the back of the grid, well, he'll be thinking at this point, okay, little by little, we've got to get into this race and find a bit more pace. And if he can do so, well, he might be able to chase down what would be a top 10 finish in class. And indeed, it's a long way to go as we show you the class standings there. And that's where all the points are scored, of course. A bit further up the road from them, here's Alex Boniface and Jason Hodgson. Hodgson, the pro driver here, who had that open lap altercation. Well, he wants to try and get this done as quickly as he can and move past another Evo driver because he's got to pick his way through the Evos to go playing with the pros. And he does that around the outside. Rob Gregg, meanwhile, we'll come back to him. He's fighting side by side here with David Pilcher. And well, he's going to go around the outside, but Pilcher will defend hard to the inside through the corner. We've seen this two-way configuration. It's all about bravery of him on the outside, and Rob Gregg's full of bravery pills today, and he goes up the inside into position, moves it into 13th place in Evo, leaves Pilcher behind, and now James Bostock and Eduardo Andino in a bit of a scrap here, as I believe Bostock's had a bit of a difficult start to the race, has the GPX SimSport driver, and therefore in the Onyx machine, right now he's just got to try and pick himself back up from where he started. As he makes his way off into the distance, we look to Andy Chell, and Chell here's under a bit of pressure on Robert McNaughton, as we do say hello to Sam Clark, who's cheering on McNaughton. And well, as we look back from the rear of the leader of this pair, this is Chell's Aston Martin, the QMS Motorsport driver, currently in 7th place in class. He's lost 2 places since the start of the race. And again, Chell will have Mike Barber in the radio to him from the pit wall, saying to him, Andy, get your head down, consolidate this position, and then start to move forward. And well, Chell won't let things upset him if he can. all the way through, poke up the inside there from Norton, tries to go around the brakes, gets very close there as they come out of turn at number 12, and well, Chell went a bit deep, which is a natural line, but Norton tried to siphon his way out the inside there, that did not work for him, and well, for Chell, definitely getting away from that one. If Norton was any closer there, they would have both been on round, and well, they'd both be going to the stewards room afterwards, pointing the finger at each other. But Jason Hodgson has come onto the back of this, and I think Norton is going to have to look in his rearview mirror and make a bit of a judgment call here, which is, does he let Hodgson go or does he fight him? And I think he's going to do the sensible option, which is to let Hodgson go. It's the right call, and what it will do is essentially it will cause him to lose a bit of time here to Chell initially, but in the long term he will gain, because then Hodgson will go on the attack. Well, I say that, and in fact now Norton's going to fight this all the way through turn number 1, so Hodgson's not going to be allowed a clear run here. And remember, he doesn't have to step aside as McNaughton. They are two different classes, but there are no rules that say that an Evo driver can't fight a pro driver or vice versa. They are allowed to battle. It's just not doing them any favours. We do have a black flag, ladies and gentlemen, for Robin Noel Brown. I believe he had to come into the pits for what was a track limit breach, which was converted into a drive-through penalty, and he's picked up a black flag for speeding in the pit lane subsequently. So therefore, for Noel Brown, this race is going from good to bad to disastrous as quickly as one trip to the pit lane. So Noel Brown will be absolutely fuming with that one. And here is the man, as we've just seen there. What was a lovely bit of driving from Jason Hodgson to go from outside to inside versus McNaughton. Finally gains that 31st place. But here is Robin Noel Brown in 37th, conversely. And well, James Bostock behind us picked up a yellow flag for track limits as well, for cutting one of the apexes of the turn 4-5 chicane a bit too much. But as we come from them, let's go up to Steve Rubino, as we do believe we have his brother Daniel tuning in. Good evening to you, Daniel. I hope you're doing well. And the Hobo Racing driver here right now from the US of A, currently in 3rd place in the Evo class, which is a place higher than where he started from 4th. But the point being that he's not quite on the pace of the top 2 in the class, as that's a poke up the inside there from Tom Cordy on Ross Young. That's brave to go for it like that, and that is trying to get your rival to make a mistake. And well, the Yorkshire team machine right now of Ross Young definitely goes a little bit deep there. Going down the start for the straight, however, that BMW M4 Evo has one asset up its sleeve, and that is a huge amount of straight line speed. And Cordy's close, but not quite close enough as we jump on board. Is he going to look for the move here? This will be for 20th place in the Pro class. He is going to go for it, but in the end his rival outbreaks himself there. Cordy forces him into a mistake, and now Young's going to go deep. Now will he come back at him? No, he won't. Cordy gets the move done. Brilliant bit of psychological work there from Tom Cordy, just simply saying to Ross Young, look, I'm going for it on the inside, you're going to beat me on the brakes. And in fact, he didn't know exactly where his brake marker was. For Ross Young, outbroke himself, went too deep, and by the time he got it back together, well, Cordy had made the place on him. As they roar the way now towards the mid portion of that. A bit further up the road, we have Denny Ploger, who's fallen away from Jan Nagy over the course of the last 2 laps. Now he has the Exodus Sport red machine at David Hutchison for close company. And Hutchison, of course, was the car that ended up going very sideways. Well, one of the 3 cars that went very sideways on the opening lap. You can see the damage on the right-hand side of the car, particularly towards the rear of the door on the right-hand side. From the driver's perspective, that is. Ploger right now would ideally like the Axis Sport 4 Mustang to go away or be able to break away from it, so that way he doesn't have to worry about dealing with it. But Hutchison is not going anywhere anytime soon other than looking to go around the outside. So Ploger there plays it smart and just holds that inside line, means he guarantees himself the corner. Hutchison has to do the hard work around the outside. He will lose a tenth or two to Nagy, but now Hutchison can go be Jan Nagy's problem, and Ploger will hope to gain as a result of passing on the problem to somebody else. We call that issue management in the land of work, and right now Denny Ploger doing a phenomenal bit of work here to make sure that he's just keeping his race out of trouble. But up the order then, we now come to the pros, and this is going to be Jared Love looking around the outside of Mark Johnson. It's Mercedes and Ford action here, and right now Mark Johnson looking a bit threatened, albeit both drivers have had very different starts, with Mark Johnson gaining 5 places in class, Jared Love losing 1, so therefore you can understand that Johnson doesn't want to let this place go if he can help it, because by holding onto it as best as possible, he'll be thinking to himself that this is going to be some good points in the bag if that's all he does over the race distance today. Well, I wouldn't be surprised if he fancies his chances chasing after Adam Baker, but the 2-second gap, I think the priority right now is to keep Love behind. And these drivers definitely right now keeping each other honest, as is Nick Stubb chasing down our leader Robin Milton, and Milton only half a second clear at the moment in the Acura, and what he was able to deliver in qualifying was by slender margin, and Stubb and Milton are exchanging lap time right now as if they're on the stock market trade floor, because last lap it was Milton was the faster of the two, a personal best of 45.82, Stubb a 45.98. The difficulty that Stubb has here, of course, is the fact he's running right behind a very dirty air pushing Acura, where he's going to be riding that dirty air through all of these medium and high speed corners, and the Vulcan fastest by glass tip racing driver will need to protect those front tyres even more, because otherwise he may end up with more severe tyre degradation as he goes a bit deep there into turn number 15, and in the end as he roars his way through the corner, gets it back to zero, but that will put a lot of strain on that front right tyre. That will be excess wear, but Stubb right now is going for this. He wants to try and get the lead of this race, because if he can, then the shoe will be on the other foot as they head down towards turn number 1. For the 9th time of asking, Stubb looking up the inside here. Does he go in the brakes? Yes, he does. It's going to be close, and could the pro lead change hands here? Well, Milton's going to try and hold it all the way around the outside to get to the left-hander at turn number 2. He's still there, is Milton. It's good defensive driving. Now they'll go to the right-hander at turn number 3. I don't think Milton's got a response now, unless he can get the switch back, but Nick Stubb's going to try and shut that off, or is he? Because he'll go to the inside into turn number 4. Milton looking to the outside, but Stubb immediately comes across him and says, no, you're not fully alongside. I'm going to slam the door firmly in your face, and Nick Stubb now takes the lead of this race. As we look back from the rear of the leading Mercedes, and the Vulcan fastest by glass tip racing team will be very pleased to see their driver move into lead, but look who's caught up to this. Stephen Codman is now there with them as they conclude the first 15 minutes of this race, and well, it's all changed at the very front in the pro and overall characteristics, but meanwhile in the Evo close, Yanagi is still leading by quite a comfortable margin, albeit David Hutchinson has yet to arrive on his rear end, and Denny Ploger, we're hoping that those two end up fighting. But here, what you see on your screen is the top 3 that right now has changed hands slightly, but it's still very close and firmly in the balance. Coming a bit further down the order then, let's talk about some of our stars who are not right at the front. We look at overall positions again, and this is Mark Van Morken, currently running in 25th place overall. He's chasing after fellow pro driver of Adam Smith, and he's got behind him Katios, who is close, but not quite close enough to think about a move. And then we do have a bit further back by 7 seconds. As the dust begins to settle after cars run wide there. That's with Stuart Rice up the inside of James Fraser. Oh, he gets a little bit elbows out there. These two have been fighting hard for quite some laps. Andy Chell's on the back of them as well. Rice is not giving up with this, albeit Fraser's giving as good as he's getting. And coming out of that chicane right now, Chell's looking at this. I think he's thinking to himself, how on earth do I untangle these two? Because they are locking horns. Indeed, right now it's like two goats charging at each other. And we're coming down through turn number 12. It's very respectful battling, to be fair. They're not headbutting each other too hard, but James Fraser is absolutely doing everything he can to keep Stuart Rice behind. He is digging in so hard here right now, and Andy Chell right behind him, I think, is just thinking to himself, well, if they keep battling this much, are they going to take each other off the road or start causing each other mistakes? Can I gain both places immediately? And well, he'll have to try and do something soon, because you can see there in the rear of the picture, that is Alex Boniface in his Mercedes AMG. He's your 8th place Evo runner, 32nd on the track, and he is not too far off. And then you have Robert McNaughton, who's under big pressure from Rob Gregg. Well, there's the battle of two Robs here, if Robert doesn't mind me saying so. And as they head down towards turn 1, well, McNaughton goes defensive on the inside, and Dexterous Motorsports McLaren arcs it towards the apex here. Does he get it stopped in time? Yes, it's a good stop. And now Gregg's not quite able to respond there, and Matt Stace is there with them. So the Evo class, the bottom end of the top 10, or the bottom half of the top 10, is absolutely full of mad battling at the moment, as Andy Chell's just picked his way past Stuart Rice off camera. We'll get a quick replay of that very shortly. And Rob Gregg battling here with Robert McNaughton. McNaughton on the outside to the inside for turns 4 and 5. It's going to be side by side all the way through. McNaughton still there. Gregg's got a nose ahead, but now it's downhill into a right-hander. Can he hold on to it? Gregg's going to use all the road to do so here. He does. It's a brilliant bit of defensive driving there from Rob Gregg to consolidate the position he took. And Gregg moves up into 9th place, if not for a brief moment there, versus Robert McNaughton, who's close, but not quite close enough to attack. Matt Stace, meanwhile, he's now getting very close behind as the sparks fly from the undertrain. It's off the road. McNaughton goes to the gravel. Here comes Stace. Surely he's got the plays. He's going to go all in here on the brakes. He knows he can't waste an opportunity, and he'll take it. Matt Stace moves up into 10th at Evo, and Robert McNaughton making a bit of an error there. But you can understand, given the fact he's been running in clear air for so long, so to make the adjustment to dirty air for Arabiata 2, and Will stays absolutely waiting in the wings and times it right to jump ahead. From them then, let's come back to Fraser, Chell and Rice, and well, here we go again. Chell now has to go defensive as Rice tries to look around the outside of him into the final corner. Well, that's not going to help Chell's campaign on the back of Fraser. I think Fraser's saying under his breath right now, please guys, keep fighting, but Fraser makes a complete ham sandwich out of the final corner. That is not a quick exit at all. They're going to be very close here. I wouldn't suppose this is going to go free wide at this point, because Rice right now is there. They start to power their way past the low-speed Porsche of Fraser, and now here comes Rice, having picked up a double toe. He's going to have to go around the outside to get this done. Into turn number 1, Chell defends the middle of the road. Fraser in the end can't go up the inside, he's too far back. Chell will take the place, and now Fraser's going to look up the inside of Rice heading up the hill. No can do so. Stuart Rice and forces Fraser to back out, and James Fraser suddenly loses both places. Andy Chell gains both places, and Stuart Rice loses one and drops to 6th place in Evo class. So Chell has very intelligently woven his way between himself, Stuart Rice and James Fraser, and Alex Boniface is there now, and this quartet may suddenly start to break apart into a pair of duets. But we'll see what exactly happens there, as meanwhile towards the front of the field, we can see that Nick Stubb is starting to bolt away. Fastest lap of the race last time round, a 45.50 for Nick Stubb. Everybody else lapping in the 46. It's 46.13 for Milton, 46.43 for Codman, 46.45 for Peter Duke. The point being here, Nick Stubb has now been unleashed onto the circuit, and it is showing as it's a 45.63 for the Stubb that time around. Robin Milton a 46.25, Codman a 46.0, Peter Duke a 45.8. So the Mercedes drivers inside this top 5 are suddenly finding their pace, and particularly Nick Stubb, now that he's got clear track, he's absolutely trying to grind away at this race. A bit further back, we look to Adam Smith and Mark Van Vulken. These two still playing the game of catch-up, with Steve Rubino in front of them, the third-place Evo driver, who seems to be just holding them at a measure right now. Van Vulken here watching Adam Smith and looking for an opportunity to try and gain another place where he can. But no way through at the moment between them. Back to Andy Chell, who's got Stuart Rice for close company. It's the battle of the Aston Martins here. Indeed, right now you could say it's the proverbial British Civil War of two British machines and two British drivers. We're coming down towards turn number 1. Andy Chell right now goes defensive. Rice looking all the way around the outside, goes very wide into turn 1. That is using all the road and then a bit more from Rice. I think even going a bit too deep for what he expected there. So Chell will hold this one quite comfortably. You could see what Stuart was trying to do. He was trying to get all the momentum on a very late apex, but then went so deep that he ended up pretty much turning what was turn number 1 into a NASCAR bowl, if you will. And well, the Phoenix Racing red driver now home to regroup and go again. Conversely, James Fraser, now that he's out of the fight with the Aston Martins, is ridden now home to watch his rear for Alex Boniface, who is trying to slava all over the back of him. From them, Robin Noel Brown takes place of Chris Jennings, and well, both drivers had different starts to the race. One's on a bit of a recovery drive now, conversely to the other, where Jennings not really recovering as quickly at this point in time. I think you'll be wary of the fact that Robin Noel Brown did start this race all the way up in 6th place versus what was his starting position at 10th place, so naturally he would expect Noel Brown to be the slightly faster driver. If that, their next target will be James Bostock, teammate of course to Robin Noel Brown, and well, we'll have to wait and see what James does there given the situation, because whilst they are teammates, they both race for JPX SimSport, they both race for sister teams, Xenon and also Vertex. But as we see Robin Noel Brown getting very close to Bostock very quickly there. Bostock right now does not seem to be in a rhythm whatsoever. Well, Noel Brown on the back, looks up the inside, goes all in for the lunge immediately. And well, I think Bostock there was expecting something to come. Whether he expects it to be that quick and sudden, well, only he will know. But Robin Noel Brown put a quick one over him, and now Jennings will go hunting versus Bostock as they head in towards turn number 15. And the Access SimSport Blue driver, I think he's going to fancy his chances here as they head onto the brakes in towards turn 15. Well, at least if not here, then he'll fancy it on the start for this straight, because that Mercedes will have a lot of straight line speed compared to its rival machine in the McLaren. And of course, Mercedes and McLaren teaming up in several years in a number of different disciplines, including GT World Racing and also in Formula 1. But here, two manufacturers standing very well much apart. They head down towards turn number 1, but Jennings close, not close enough there. And well, Bostock does have a bit of straight line speed in that McLaren, which he's using to keep himself well and truly alive. From there, now let's make our way back towards the top 10. And as we can see, Tim van den Ham, 10th place overall and in the pro class. He has got Dean Sheesby looking up the inside. Sheesby had to qualify quite poorly, starting in 17th place. Van den Ham started in 21st place, conversely. And well, both these drivers have brilliant starts to the race, and they're trying to move forward. Right on board with the third man in this Marjatoire, it is none other than Krista Starsmore. Well, there Sheesby looking one way, then the other, trying to get into the head of Van den Ham, trying to get him to outbrake himself. But the Dutchman does not fall for one of the classic tricks in the motorsport book. But Sheesby says, okay, if that doesn't work, I'll just get a better exit out the corner compared to you. And Starsmore right now in the popcorn bucket seat view, watching this as they roll the way down the straight. Van den Ham goes the outside, interestingly. I would have thought he would have gone to the inside there. Perhaps he favours the idea of a cutback here into turn 1. Sheesby's going to get alongside under braking. I think Van den Ham thinks, can he outbrake the Mercedes and carry it all the way up the hill? And, well, he's going to go for his Van den Ham. This is a very interesting style of defence from the Ferrari driver. And he's going to get the inside into 2. Sheesby slides a little bit there under braking. And Van den Ham defending the outside of 1. Now, I reckon it's the confidence he has in that Ferrari 296's rotation. He's set that car very nicely for that outside line. And it really has worked out. I think Sheesby's going to look at this and think, hold on, how did he just cover me off at turn 1 on the outside line when I was well into that braking zone before him? And the answer is because Van den Ham just has so much grip on the outside tyres in that Ferrari, and that's what's made it work out for him. Running out wide a bit, Sheesby there, really trying to get the nose into Arabiata 1. That's a very cheeky look there from Sheesby. It's going to carry him to the gravel on such a compromised entry line, but he decided, all right, I'm going to try and throw something at him that he won't expect. And then Van den Ham just simply looked over his shoulder and went, well, okay, you're not going to make the next corner without touching the gravel. So Starswell now gets a bit closer there, and Sheesby throwing everything at this immediately. The 152 driver, to be fair, is not a stranger to using unconventional tactics, albeit legal ones, we should point out. And Starswell's probably just looking at this right now and thinking, what on earth are they doing in front of me? I need to try and get involved when I can, because there's 2 places up for grabs here. As they come towards the end of this lap and we get towards the end of the first half of this race, indeed time is absolutely flying by, as it does when you're having fun. Indeed, plenty of our drivers having exciting fun here today, here at the Mugello circuit. Well, no change between these 3 after Van den Ham's brilliant defensive driving. James Howarth is now only 1.2 seconds behind. You can see him in the rear view picture in the Aston Martin Vantage V8 Evo, roaring the way onwards towards the next lap. The target now will be for Sheesby to try and find a different way past. And Van den Ham this time decides to defend the inside, so he's keeping Sheesby guessing every time. And he's now saying, watch this, Dean, I bet you I can beat you under braking into the apex, and also now I can prove to you I can defend on the inside as much as the outside. Sheesby gets the better exit, there's contact between the 2 of them, and suddenly the game's all over as Van den Ham is spun to the wall. And well, Sheesby tapping on the rear there. I don't think there was any malice meant, but I think that was the closing speed to the cars. And well, Starswell right now with a flash of lights there, that's trying to get into Sheesby's head and get him to make a mistake. But Sheesby right now getting his head down immediately, and Van den Ham, you can understand if he'll be a bit frustrated at that one, and I wouldn't be surprised if that will be a trip to the pits soon for what will be a slightly earlier than planned pit stop, and also a fast repair to get that rear wing back on the car as teammate to Van den Ham of Mark de Vries tucks at the inside. Tom Cordy goes around the outside. He's got to go a long way round, but he does, and right now the 103 Ferrari definitely in a state of disrepair, and he'll look to try and get it fixed as quickly as he can. From them, let's go a little bit further back. We look back to the 5. Oh, goodness me, as that's Van den Ham going very sideways there into the gravel, and I think somebody in front's got it wrong as well, and Jamie Bardwell's had a nightmare moment. Both drivers there have got it wrong. I think Bardwell might have been in reaction. We'll have to get a replay of that very shortly, but what we were about to talk about was the fact that 2nd and 3rd in Evo are getting very close to each other, but as we do look to them, here is Steve Rubino, who's had Adam Smith look up the inside of him. So Rubino, who was confidently closer than Denny Ploger, now has to do a bit more work because he has a pro drive between himself and his target, and well, Mark van Malken is right behind right now. And Rubino is going to be thinking to himself, where on earth where they all keep coming from, because he's just wanted to take a shot at that 2nd place in class for some time. He's not been given the breathing room in which to do it, albeit he doesn't have to expect the breathing room will be given to him. You can understand that if he'll feel a little bit frustrated after all the hard work he's been putting in so far. Then again, a 3rd place finish here would keep his run of podiums unbroken so far this season, and it still would be enough to help him extend himself in the championship lead. Towards the timeline they go, and it's going to get interesting in front there, as we are going to see a couple of drivers looking to exchange glances. And well, as they make their way down the start-finish straight, side by side for a couple of drivers. Tim Van den Ham has made his way into the pit lane, it should be pointed out, but Ross Young here under pressure to keep ahead of Denny Ploger, and well behind, that is a car that they've put a lap on. That's Matthew Hunter in the Simcast Racing Team UK BMW M4, who right now trying to let them all go under blue flags, and Rubino up the inside there as well, and that's contact, and that is going to send one of the drivers on around, and that's going to be a Ferrari going all the way round, and well, that is the Ferrari, unless I'm very much mistaken. They're just trying to discern who that was, who was just sent all the way around, but I believe that was Mark van Malken who was turned. So that's unfortunate for Van Malken, and Rubino will take some damage on the car as well. And I think they'll have a chat about that one after the race, because that was not the way they expected it to play out whatsoever. But let's take a look back on the previous lap and how it all started. And this was what happened to Tim Van den Ham and Jamie Bardwell coming down the hill. Now, Bardwell was close, all over the back of Vandenham, look to the inside, and contact there between the two of them, and Bardwell in the end siphoning sideways as a result of that contact, so the car came loose. Bardwell tried to keep it together, but couldn't do so after the contact he made. This was the on-board with Bardwell. In fact, this was the on-board with Sheesby. I think we got a slight mix-up there of our footage. Give us a brief moment. Here we go. This was Jamie Bardwell then up the inside, wanted the place, makes the contact and sets the car, and then drifts sideways one way, and then overcorrects, and ends up going to the gravel himself. And well, both of them will be fuming at that. We then had this for Mark Van Mulken on the next lap, which was at the end of the long saga of moments. This was the SimRacing Team Lowlands 2 driver who was at the back of this long pack, all trying to make their way past Matthew Hunter. And, well, as he made his way into turn 2, hit the side of Steve Rubino in the break-in. I think Rubino was caught out a little bit by Hunter's positioning, and Van Mulken in the end saw the door was open, but in the end it was a false dawn, and as a result it all went around. But back to your live racing we go, ladies and gentlemen. And as we come back, well, we get towards the halfway point of the race now. And as we do, we look back to the front, and Nick Stubb still leads. In fact, that lead is opening more and more each and every lap. Last couple of laps, he has been opening up that lead by the best part of what has been half a second. In fact, we can show you how that time delta has been growing, because he has been absolutely ferocious, has Stubb. And here it is, ladies and gentlemen, bottom right-hand corner of your screen. And what you can see is how that gap is constantly opening up there. And right now, Stubb is absolutely flying ahead of Robin Milton. And I wouldn't be surprised if at the rate of knots he's going at, well, he might be able to open up the gap to 6 or 7 seconds before he comes into his pit stop. And it is the lap times that really are telling the difference there, because look at Milton's times by comparison, and what you can see on lap number 15, Milton was a whole second slower by comparison, and last lap he was a whole half a second slower. So coming towards the end of this one, well, Milton's going to peel into the pits. He's decided he's had enough. He's going to split the race exactly down the middle. Codman and Duke, they go a little bit longer, and Peter Duke all over the back of Stephen Codman for what is second on the road, but effectively we believe somewhere between second and fourth on strategy. Duke looking up the inside here. Codman's not going to fight it too hard. I think this is all about the strategy for Codman. He's aware of the fact that when Milton coming on in, he can't really afford to fight, so he would rather let the Mercedes driver just take the place and then work with him to maintain race time. So Codman playing it smart. Duke, I think, will know the fact that place was given quite kindly to him in the end, although Duke did the hard work in the first place to be in the right place to attack. We will now have to wait and see what happens next as we look to the overall standings there, and that's how you'll see how they all come out as a result of the pit stops. In terms of Nick Stubb, or Stubby as he's known to friends, including Martin Reinders in the YouTube chat there. Good evening to you, Martin. Hope you're doing well. Well, where has Stubb come out in all of this? And the answer is, well, he hasn't, because he's out on circuit at the moment. I'm getting two names mixed up here. I'm thinking of Robin Milton. My apologies. And Milton has come out in 12th place. And here is the 155 driver heading through turns 4, 5 and in towards 6. He's got plenty of clear track in front of him. He's got a 4-second gap to Christopher Starswell. So Milton has bought himself a really good window to pit. Now, doing the mathematics here, given the fact that Stubb was 4 to 5 seconds ahead of Milton, if Stubb was to pit, he would come out in amongst the pair of Dean Sheesby and James Howarth, and that would, as a result, force Stubb into a situation where he would lose time rather than gain it. So the team for Robin Milton have done a fantastic job of giving him a nice window to work with, but now he's got to pump the laps together. Stubb, meanwhile, on the Vulcan and Fasteners team, they've probably looked at the time delta and realised they can't pit him because of the Sheesby-Howarth-Starsmore battle, and that would stop him from gaining time as a result of the pit stop. It would cost him more time, especially if they were to get it wrong in the pits. But we will see then what that does to the pit stops, and who will come into the pits next. We've got a black flag, and that's Katios, who's been speeding in the pit lane, so he's going to come in again for a stop and hold. And well, our drivers head on down. We can see here Adam Baker and Jared Love. They're close together, coming out the pits meanwhile. That is one of our other drivers, a bit further down the running order, I do believe. But move up the inside there. That is a lot of late braking from Jared Love. He gets it stopped just in time, does the Scotsman. And Baker over the back of him here, looking around the outside now in towards turn number 2. So Adam Baker does lose the place, but the Porsche driver, to be fair, is not going to give this up too soon. Well, I think in the end both drivers overcooking their braking zone slightly into turn 1, and well, Love getting away with it, whereas Baker had to lose the place when all was said and done. But through left into right they go, and as he does, Baker there with a big front end wash of dirty air. That was understeer plenty there. The Porsche refusing to turn, and as a result losing almost a second there to Love just through the exit of turn number 5. That goes to show you how nasty it can be when you run in the dirty of another car. Remember, the amount of downforce they're running here, they will be running close to, if not maximum rear wing on on the car. Well, with that dirt here, it completely strips a lot of the downforce off, and as a result, suddenly rotating the car into these corners can feel like a handful. And, well, Adam Baker definitely having a handful of a moment there. But more pit stops playing out. We've got a few black flags in the pits. In fact, Denny Ploger has a black flag, and that will be for speeding in the pit lane on entry. So Ploger right now will have a pit stop. Well, he's going to complete this pit stop, and then it will be a stop and go for speed in the pit lane, and that's going to cost him even more. This is suddenly going to play right into the hands of firstly Evo leader Jan Nagy, who's still out there yet to pit, but also likes of Steve Rubino, also Stuart Rice, Andy Chell and Rob Gregg. Suddenly the fight for the third place spot on the Evo podium has blown open massively, and it could be between several drivers at this point who might be chasing down that final spot on that podium. And Stuart Rice could be on course for his first podium of the season, Andy Chell for his second podium of the season, and Rob Gregg for another podium as well. Well, there's going to be a lot of intrigue there as our drivers continue in this pit window to see exactly where they fit into the strategic sequence. Tim Van Ham, meanwhile, where he's been into the pits, he's got the car repaired, he's immediately back on the attack, up the inside of Ross Young in towards turn number 6. The flames coming out the back of the Ferrari, and that was a classic move. Jamie Bardwell now, where he got it wrong earlier on. He's back here again, up the inside he goes there of Ross Young in towards Arabiata 1. They make a little bit of a touch, but in the end, Young's able to survive it as they head up the hill. Well, great move there. It was a daring move from Bardwell. Young, to be fair, had to give the space to make it work, and well, it takes two to tango, and Bardwell and Young definitely showing they may not be right at the front of the Pro Class in terms of being stars, but they're further down the field in the Pro Class, and they're superstars in their own right. And Bardwell right now not wasting any time trying to make up some more places. But as they come towards the end of this lap, and they have pitted indeed, a majority of the field has pitted if it has not already. It's only our top 8 at the moment in the overall standings that has yet to pit, and a couple of outliers including Stuart Rice and Andy Chell. Otherwise everybody is into the pits, their one and only pit stop at this time, it would seem, although Matt Stace, Fotis Katios and Eduardo and Dino have all but that trend as well. In fact, I think Katios had to come in because of a black flag that was perhaps a track limits instead. Not 100% certain that, ladies and gents. We do apologise. We'll let you know a bit later on. But meanwhile, Andy Chell, Mark Johnson, they're too wide here, and Chell passing Johnson to take another place overall. But Chell, remember, has yet to pit. So for Johnson, that's going to be an absolute confounding moment. For Chell, we'll be happy about that, but he'll know it's a short-lived moment as they make the way in towards turns 6 and 7. Ryan Howarth and Sheesby, they're back together. And in fact, Dean Sheesby has lost out. He swapped place with Howarth. Howarth has leapt ahead of him by 2 seconds on the pit stops. So that goes to show you how Howarth's been working this one. He's worked it on strategy rather than race pace. And that now means that Howarth has an opportunity to chase down Mark Johnson for what will be 11th in the Pro Class. And, well, Wayne Douglas is a bit further up the road. So I think they're going to be fighting for the best of the rest status in Pro for the remainder of this one, if Johnson can get it together. And right now, that Ford Mustang does not look to be in a comfortable place. After it's off, they enabled Chell to come on through. Well, Johnson right now seems to be struggling a little bit here as he wraps his way around through turn 12 into 13-14. Howarth looking around the outside, looking one way then the other. He is very eager as James Howarth to try and make a move here on Johnson. And the Axis in Sport red car right now looking very vulnerable and under threat. However, if he gets a good exit here out of turn number 15, he'll feel less threatened as they power the way down the start-finish straight. Exit the corner then, and as he does, throttle in 2.5 tenths initially. Plenty of cars in the pit lane, and there's going to be a few leaving. Here comes Sheesby with a double toe. He's going to look around the outside of the first one. He's going to go on the move for Harworth here. Can he get it into the break? It's over turn 1. If he does, well, he's going to try and go all the way around the outside again. 3 wide they go, because it is Johnson who's on an inside line going defensive. Around the outside goes Howarth, but he goes too deep. Sheesby takes the place of Howarth, but Johnson still holds on to lead this freeway fight. And in fact, it's the battle for 9th place in Pro now that more pit stops are played out. And we have Simon Clifton 4 seconds back and Chris Jennings as well. But if they continue to fight like this, they could all be brought in. And Christopher Starsmore, meanwhile, on strategy has leapt ahead of all 3 of them. The 131 driver Simcast Racing Team UK has used strategic smarts, moved himself into 8th. And I can imagine right now on the pit wall, the strategist of Stephen Wilkinson, that's going to be a big smile on his face there, because they've brought their leading driver right ahead of this battle. And right now, well, Johnson, Sheesby and Howarth have to make a choice. Do they fight each other or do they chase this man down? And we'll get the feeling, unfortunately, that choice has been made to them, and that is they'll fight each other given how tenacious they're all being. And Starsmore can just break away with this and go on course potentially to pick up his best result of the season. Then again, we still do have 22 minutes to go, and anything can happen before it's all over. And we've seen that time and time again in this series, no doubt about it. And whilst all this is going on, hold up a second, Robin Milton, he came into the pits first of everybody. He's all the way down the order now. What on earth has happened to Robin Milton? I wonder We're just double checking at the moment. I believe Robin Milton has picked up some sort of penalty that he's had to serve because he's only been stationed in the pits for one time. I think it might be instant points. I think he's had a drive-through penalty for track limits, and that has led to Robin Milton in the end. Well, he's dropped all the way down to 15th place. So now Menno Bloem is up into second in what is the Pro Class and overall, and Peter Duke's up into third, just ahead of Stephen Codman. So this race has taken a whole new turn, and Menno Bloem is under pressure here from Peter Duke as we come back to the front of the field. As the floodlights start to go on, so do the headlights. Well, Nick Stowe is running away, and right now could it be a Mercedes 1-2 as the pressure builds, and Bloem runs wide. They're coming out to turn number 5, takes too much of the sausage curve, it bounces the car around. Duke immediately up the inside, right into left they go, and just squeezes ahead there. Bloem in the end backing off, knowing that 2 does not go into 1 at turn number 7, and Peter Duke seizing on the opportunity. The DC Motorsport driver doesn't need to be asked twice and immediately moves up into second place. What a brilliant move there from Peter Duke, and right now definitely looks like the 177 driver could be on course here to take his first podium of the season in some time, and with that it could be a 1-2 for Mercedes, and then Menno Bloem in the Ferrari right now will just be trying to hold on for a bit longer. But Stephen Codman must be looking at this and surely licking his lips and thinking, well, if Bloem is struggling, can I get involved and add another podium to my tally and really push Bloem further down in the championship standings, given the fact that Codman, of course, championship leader by the best part of 30 points. He's got to fancy this here. I think he'll be fine with the 4th place. He'll know it doesn't dent his championship lead too much, but Partoon's got to be screaming out right now. You need to get closer to Bloem and try to force him to lose that 3rd place. Behind, looking from one Access and Swap red car to another of David Hutchison. He's chasing after Tom Cordy. And they fight over 15th overall and in Pro. And well, through the corners they go as we bring you the class standings as we head into that final third of the race. And Cordy and Hutchison, they're close, but not close enough to look for a move, says Hutchison. More up towards 15 they come. In front is Robin Milton, who is on a crusade back for the field as quickly as he can. Fighting further down the order seems to have calmed down for the most part now, and in fact in Evo there is a little fighting going on inside the top 10, although Dave Collier and James Fraser are having a little bit of fun as we ride on board the front bump here of the DC Motorsport Mercedes, the number 16 from Ireland. Right now for Collier, a little bit shaky there coming through the corners, the car wiggling around. I think that's just trying to get the car to plant. Oh, goodness me, carries a lot of speed there into turn number 4, my good lord. And Dave Collier carrying so much momentum, being in releasing the car past him, and that will be releasing what will be Jared Love through, respecting the blue flags immediately, and particularly when it's his teammate. I can imagine that Jared was on the radio saying, Dave, I'm coming up quick, I need you to step aside. Don't worry, I'll give you the time back by annoying James Fraser and find the way through. Fraser knows what's coming. He's holding his line for Arabiata 2 as Collier there finds a wash of dirty air, but also lets on through the car of Adam Baker and also teammate Wayne Douglas. So Collier right now doing a brilliant job of being mindful of everybody making their way on through, and well, these drivers right now all keeping it together as they head in towards the next set of braking sirens. But all these drivers right now, heads down, carrying on, plenty of fighting still to come between them all, and we're waiting to see what the next big battle will be. But in fact, we can confirm, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you there for a good point out from Liam Fraser, that the drive-through that has been served by Robin Milton has been a drive-through penalty as a penalty for reaching a certain number of licence points after round number 3. So he takes a drive-through penalty into this round and he can serve it at any point in the round, but he must serve it. So that explains why he's had that second visit to the pit lane. He's been demoted. Meanwhile, coming back to the action here, this is 3 wide down the start-finish straight, albeit it is 2 cars who are on the lead lap and one that's a lap down. James Fraser tucks in behind here and just wants to stay with him, doesn't want to lose pace. But Adam Baker and Jared Love were side by side for a brief moment, and Love still holds on with teammate Wayne Douglas directly in front. With the DC Motorsport drivers, they're going to be tripping over each other's toes at this point. And well, through left into right they go as Max Steen's leaving the pit lane after picking up a penalty earlier on. Well, it is going to be Wayne Douglas under a lot of pressure to try and hold on the entire distance if he can. I think Love's now found his form, and Baker as well in that Porsche suddenly has really come alive here in the late stages. But we'll see. Stephen Codman, who's 8 seconds up the road, I think he'll recognise the fact that the fight for 5th in the Pro Class right now is taking precedence over trying to chase him down. And Jared Love here would love for his teammate to move a little bit faster on the circuit. I can imagine the pressure is building behind, and I wonder if they will make a swap soon, because Douglas does seem to be, right now, the slower of the two. Not being unfair to him, but the pace seems to be leaning one way, and Love is very close at the moment. He won't want to get any closer than that, because otherwise there'll be contact. And the number one rule of race, of course, ladies and gentlemen, is to beat your teammate. The number two rule is don't take your teammate and yourself out the race if you can help it. And Love right now trying to stick to rules 1 and 2 simultaneously. I think this is getting a bit risky between them. Robin Milton, well, after serving his drive-through for the penalty points picked up from round number 3, he's now on the back of Victor Van Ziest, trying to move into 13th place. And we're looking for a potential move when he can, as Jared Love dives to the inside of Wayne Douglas. We catch that into turn 15 for a brief moment, and, well, they timed it to perfection. And, well, in the end, Wayne Douglas now will benefit from the draft of the DC Motorsport driver as they head down the start for the straight. And as they roll the way onwards, it'll be 6.3 litre V8, followed by another one, and then it'll be the 4 litre 6-cylinder flat 6 of the Porsche of Adam Baker that gives chase in. You see Baker trying to get on through. Douglas is going to go defensive there into turn 1. That's intentionally to try and box off Baker and enable Jared Love to take his racing line. So good teamwork here from the DC Motorsport pair. They are trying to play this race out to their advantage, and Adam Baker every which way behind him, but right now he can't find a way past as we jump on board inside the car of the LS Racing 191. Now, what does Baker have as his advantage? Well, the one thing he does have in this Porsche is a lot more corner speed and also braking potential. Some of the strongest brakes on the grid here in the Porsche 992. The Mercedes isn't bad on the brakes, but it's not as strong as its fellow German and neighbouring counterpart. And therefore, Baker right now knows that even with tyre degradation picking up, that if he needs to, he can lean more into the brakes and really abuse the ABS. But Wayne Douglas, now that him and Jared Love have started to clear each other, Douglas might be starting to feel a bit more in the zone, might be getting a bit more comfortable here, and if so, Baker may not be able to get any closer for the time being as the gravel chips up everywhere. We've had drivers off the circuit earlier on, and with 15 minutes left on the clock, we're Adam Baker right now. He's got to get his head back in the game. Oh no, and that's Wayne Douglas coming loose there, coming out to turn number 11 and into the barrier, straight into the tyre barrier there for Wayne Douglas. I get the feeling he dips the rear right tyre a little bit wide there, coming out 11 to the gravel, and that car right now is trying to get it restarted. He can, but Wayne Douglas's race suddenly has hit a hard stop as he rejoins the circuit and drops all the way down the order. Well, up behind Victor Van Ziest and also Robin Milton. They are close behind him right now, and well, through that right-hander they go. And Milton close, but not close enough to look for a move, but he will be glad to see that Wayne Douglas is there with him. He won't be glad to hear how it happened, but what he will be happy about is the fact he can gain another potential place here, and indeed putting damage limitation from that drive-through penalty. As Van Ziest, to be fair, for MJK SimRacing, putting up quite a resilient drive here, and indeed right now not just being walked over, which is great to see, and therefore making Milton have to work hard for this one, and Van Ziest will have the tyre Douglas to his advantage. Milton close, but not close enough there. You can see that delta as they head down towards another lap. But let's take a look back at how Wayne Douglas ended up off the road. And here we go, ladies and gentlemen. So it's out of the corner and then into the next one. Watch the rear right of the car from the driver's perspective. And in fact, it was as he came out the corner, you'll notice the right side of the car bouncing over the exit curb there, where the initial contact point of the curb is higher than the green runoff AstroTurf earlier. AstroTurf surface, I should say. And as a result, Wayne Douglas going sideways out. And well, the rear of the car just coming loose. And as a result, when he tried to get the power down, the rear right tyre overspan. And he just went straight to the barrier there. He had no control at that point. He was a passenger in his car. And we come back to your live racing after a frustrating moment there for Wayne Douglas, most definitely. From them, we return to your live racing pictures. Robin Milton still chasing after Van Ziest. As from them, we come to Denny Plogo. After that black flag, he did have to serve. Well, he is on the back of Gareth Newton. That drive-through penalty, it's not going to dissuade the Dutchman from attacking here after a dismal day last time out at Portimão. Well, right now he's had a difficult day, but he's not going to let difficulty stop him from getting another place up inside the Newton. That is the 7th place in the Evo class. So the Dutchman is on the attack here. His next target will be Rob Gregg, and Gregg, meanwhile, is 14 seconds up the road. So that's going to be a lot harder to close down with the 13 minutes plus the final lap we have remaining. But don't say it's impossible, because anything can happen to the drivers in front. They can make mistakes, or alternatively, Denny Plogo can start putting in monster laps. And in fact, the last couple of laps he's been delivering have been high 47s, the same pace as Rob Gregg. Conversely, meanwhile, the likes of Andy Chell and Callum Morrow have been lapping in the 48. So Plogo has got a lot of pace here. He's just got to be able to keep nailing these laps as long as possible. James Howarth, unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen, he's making his way on down pit lane. This is a drive-through penalty for track limits. So Howarth As a result, now he's going to fall all the way down. What will this do to the running order inside the top 10 of the Pro class? Well, what it does is it releases Mark Johnson in 7th to run now with Christopher Starswell close behind him, and Starswell is getting closer and closer. And Dean Sheesby moves up to 9th, and Simon Clifton that moves into 10th. And that really explains the story in the fact that, however, was in the last of the top 10 places. Sonny now falls a long way down, and well, we've fallen on down. We've had an incident for Wayne Douglas off camera, and well, just as we've lost Wayne Douglas, now we've got Victor Van Ziest under even more pressure on Milton, and Tom Cordy's there with him. So Tom Cordy has been hustling onto the back of this. He's seen an opportunity, and he fancies his chances. But Van Ziest here in towards Alberto 1, and Milton goes for a look up the inside, doesn't quite get it there as they come in towards the fast double right-hand complex. We can understand that Milton right now, I think, is finding a little bit of frustration running behind this Porsche for so long. However, he's been able to get a mistake to come out of Van Ziest in towards the right-hander at turn number 10 then. And then 11, a bit of door banging between the two of them, sends Milton out wide. He does rejoin, but not in the nick of the time before Tom Cordy gets up the inside there. So Cordy sees the doors open and simply pops himself in. So Milton loses the place after a rub between himself and Van Ziest, albeit too wide as they made the way through turns 10 11. And I get the feeling here that right now Van Ziest would argue, well, he wasn't fully alongside, he should have backed off. Milton would argue, I was nudged off the circuit. But it's differences of opinion, and well, I'm sure they'll have a conversation after the race. Whilst they've had the conversation on circuit, we do take a quick look back at what happened to Wayne Douglas after a frustrating lap earlier on. In fact, we won't come to that just yet because Robin Milton's picked up another black flag, and that will be for track limits this time, and therefore Robin Milton's race is going from good to bad to worse. That's going to put him even further down the order, and well, with the drive through that he had from last round, now that Robin Milton definitely feel frustration as Van Ziest defends hard versus Tom Cordy. Out of turn number 1 they come, and Van Ziest absolutely digging in here for what could be now 11th place in the Pro class. If another driver up front gets it wrong, Van Ziest could be on course for a top 10 finish here, and what would be his first top 10 of the season. And Tom Cordy as well trying to chase this down. They both see a big opportunity to land some big points, and well, they're definitely proven to be 2 stars in their cars today. With 10 minutes left on the clock, and Cordy not close enough really to continue this move, at least for now. But we can continue to talk about Wayne Douglas and what sent him to the pit lane. Now this was with Van Ziest right behind. In turns 2 and 3 they went through turn 3, and Wayne Douglas then just pulling over. Interesting. I wonder whether the damage he picked up was more than what he expected on the car, and well, completing the first couple of corners of that lap, realising that the damage was too much to continue. But a very odd one there, because there was nothing visible to explain why, so I suspect perhaps something may have broke over a curb, alternatively just realising the damage was not going to enable him to drive the car the way he wanted, so deciding to tow to the pits there and therefore get the fast repairing if they can. A bit further down the order, looking back to the battle for 12th place in Evo. It's the fight between Eduardo Andino, who's been one of the gradual risers of the field, and Robert McNaughton, albeit they have got lead cars trying to pick the way past, and that does include the Ferrari Menno Bloem is on the back of them right now. And well, blue flags will be waving, but neither driver wants to back off here. They want the other to back off first. And Robert McNaughton at this point, he'll be looking and being told that you've got blue flags, Robert, you're going to have to do something about this. And we'll be saying, well, can't the man behind me just simply find a way through? Because I'm trying to find a way through myself. And he's going to look inside to outside if returns 4 and 5. That's not going to work, but it puts Andino on the back foot. But Menno Bloem is so close right now, and he really wants these two to move aside, because closing very quickly is none other than Stephen Codman. And with the time that's been lost at the moment, albeit Codman is 8 seconds back, but understandably the fact that Bloem right now has already lost about a second by being caught behind all this through the middle portion of the lap, and is having to back off considerably. Well, it helps him save some fuel, but it doesn't save in time, and Bloem now looking around the outside here as it's going to be a move up the inside on Andino from McNaughton. He's going for this again, 2 wide for 10 and 11. He's going to go all the way around the outside. McNaughton is absolutely committed to the bit here. Going to be inside now into turn number 12, holding high as Andino. He's going to try and beat McNaughton on the brakes. That's not going to work. McNaughton's now ahead by a nose. Bloem's going to try and get involved here. He's got to be careful, though. He doesn't want to lose out in this third place. Contact between the two of them. It sends Andino to the grass. He rejoins, but he backs the throttle immediately. Black flag there for McNaughton for instant points. And, well, as a result, McNaughton's going to be fuming at that because he felt as they got the pass done. And suddenly he's lost out as Bloem up his inside there. Well, Menno Bloem survives it all, picks the right time to go through in all the chaos around them. But Robert McNaughton will need to come into the pits, win the next 3 laps to serve a drive through for instant points, and that is going to make him absolutely fume inside that cockpit because of the fact he felt as they got it done so fairly and squarely, and Andino in the end, well, the contact between the two of them was enough to send him over the instant point count. as we also do see there going on through. Well, that is going to be one of the Ford Mustangs, so Axis what red, trying to make its way on past. And I believe, unless I'm mistaken, that is Stephen Codman, who has gained a huge amount of time as a result of Menno Bloem being caught up there. In fact, the gap has been completely decimated. Bloem did have the best part of 7 seconds over Codman, and suddenly those 7 seconds are gone just like that. It's now down to a 2.5 second gap. And Codman here, well, he's cleared the traffic a bit more quickly by comparison, and he'll be hoping now that he can use that as a little bit of a springboard to attack even more into the next lap. As they come down through the running order and in towards Arabiata 1 and 2 again, we look from them to the man who's made 3 visits to the pits at this point, 1 for a pit stop and 2 for drive-throughs. Rowan Milton on the back of Ross Young. This is for 19th place in the Pro class. He's going up the inside here into turn number 1, thinks about it, but a little bit too far back. Just tries to fake the move on Young, but Young's already been caught out by that once today. He's not going to be caught out again. We have got some more black flags, 1 for Van Mulken, and also we have got a slowdown being served at the moment for Clifton, who's 10th of your Pro drivers. But with regards to overall positions there, you see your top 40 on screen. This race now heading towards its conclusion with only 6 minutes left on the clock plus a final lap. There have been some absolutely brilliant battles up and down the field today, and I don't think we're quite done with them yet. As we can see, Milton so close at this point to Young. Well, he's getting close, but has he got close at the right point in the lap? That's the big question mark. And the Phoenix Racing Green driver's going to poke his nose up the inside. Not enough there into Arabiata 1. He does love to threaten that move. He just loves getting his nose in there to try and get the driver to back off. He knows that if they make contact, it'll be on Milton in terms of the instant room when the stewards review it and say who's at fault, and they'll immediately point the finger to the guy who poked his nose in where it didn't belong. But Milton's perfected the art of poking his nose in enough that he can pull it out before the driver completely takes the nose of his car off into Arabiata 1, and with Ross Young not falling for that trick, and in the end calling out his bluff and saying, well, if you're going to do that, I'll turn into the corner, and if we make contact, I'll see you in the steward's room, and I'll be there with the popcorn as they chew you out. As they make their way through turns 13 and 14, the Phoenix Racing Green driver backing off for a little bit before getting ready to attack again. From them, then we head a little bit further back up the order to the very resilient Victor Donzist, who does have Tom Cordy still with him. Simon Clifton 3 seconds ahead at this point, but gradually pulling away, it would seem. So therefore, Van Ziest at the moment, knowing that if he can break the battle with Cordy, he may be able to get closer, but he's had a poor run there, coming out 3, in towards 4. Cordy looking around the outside, left into right, and well, both drivers here trying to negotiate the space, doing well to be fair, and Cordy and Nin can't quite make it happen as queuing up behind them. Are going to have another car. That is going to be the kind of Robert McNaughton that have been able to put a lap on. McNaughton serving that what was a drive-through penalty. So therefore he watches this with eager eyes, knowing that right now he can't really get involved, and therefore he's just got to observe, wait and listen. Closing up is David Hutchinson. He's 2.2 seconds back. So Hutchinson will be looking at this and thinking, right, if they're fighting hard, I might be able to gain 1 or 2 more places before this race is over. He's definitely pushing on right now, is David Hutchinson. However, it is going to be a bit of a challenge here all the way to the end of the race. Looking a bit further back, James Howarth, meanwhile, and we can see here the Dexterous Motorsports driver has had a frustrating race, no doubt about it, particularly after having to make that extra visit to the pit lane for a drive-through penalty of his own for track limits. Well, the 154 driver here closing up to Van den Ham, and that'll be the fight for 15th place in Pro, 16th on the road. A bit further back, you do see your second place Evo driver. He's closing up to Mark De Vries. It's Steve Rubino. He's not really got a fight with any other Evo drivers ongoing at the moment. And I think if anything for Rubino, it's going to be a settled finish for second here, and he just won't want to put anything wrong before the end. And indeed, the last time he raced at Mugello, you'll remember in Season 8, he put the car on pole, and when he went to the grid, they forgot to put the fuel in the car for the race. They only put the qualifying fuel back in the car, and in the end, the Hobo Racing team had to abort that one. Indeed, that really was the story of the first half of the season in Season 8 for Steve Rubino. Fast in qualifying, and very fast to put the wrong amount of fuel in the car as well as they went to the grid. In the second half of the season, he had some monster drivers, and we have seen another monster drive from him here today, albeit not as monstrous, one would say, as that for Evo leader Jan Nagy. And right now, well, the iRacing driver has been in a world of his own here today, leading Evo, currently 15th overall, and with the lap times he's pumping out, well, he has been the only Evo driver to set a 46 over the race distance. Everybody else has set 47s or higher. These drivers right now, they're all coming towards the end. Sunset has come as well, and understandably, you can imagine that they'll all be feeling a little bit tired here, and some of those brake markers they've been using earlier on are starting to fade away. And well, that can always lead to some last-minute mistakes. Speaking of which, there has been one for Ross Young. What's happened to him? Because he was at the time running quite nicely inside the top 20 overall. Here's a replay to explain. So this was Young heading down towards turn 1. He'd just been passed by Robin Milton, and into the braking zone he went, hard on the brakes, in through the corner, and the rear just stepped out on him there. That's a bit unexpected, but I can imagine rear tyre wear has gradually got to this BMW, went sideways, and now he's going to have overheated rear tyres, and also front tyres are going to feel a little bit spiky as well. So an uncharacteristic error there from the Yorkshire Tier machine, but now getting himself back together, and with 2 minutes to go, I think he'll just want to see this one to its checkered flag. But everybody here, well, the battles are still ongoing in amongst the drivers, but for the most part, the Evo class now seems to have gone a little bit quiet. Paul Maffey is trying to speak his voice here as he chases after Gareth Newton. And that's going to be for 7th place in the Evo class. We can get a bit closer. And Maffey has silently moved through the field all the way through today in the Phoenix Racing machine, albeit he did fall down the order. He fell outside the Evo top 10 in the early stages of the race, and he has recovered to 8th. He started 6th in class, so it will be a net loss for him. And that's why he wants to get Gareth Newton if he can, if not on this lap, then on the final lap. And in that way, he'll only have lost 1 place since the start and not lost out too many potential points. But Newton will definitely be very keen to make sure those 5 places he's gained in Evo since the start, they stay with him. Having started in 43rd overall, in fact 41st overall, I can't do mental mathematics at the moment. Well, Newton would be taking 29th overall and 7th in class. It'll feel quite special to pull that one off, and that'll be a big score there for the GPX SimSport team. The final lap is due to get underway shortly, and here is your leader. It is Nick Stubb right now, who leads his way then onto a final turn of the circuit. 34 laps will be completed, and well, the Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tech Racing Drive with a 16-second lead almost right now. He is in control, he is making a statement here, and that statement is, do not rule me out the championship early because I am coming for the lead, Mr. Codman. And a further 16 seconds behind is the second of our Mercedes 1-2 here from DC Motorsport of Peter Duke, with Menno Bloem now 4.5 seconds back, and it looks like Menno Bloem may be on course for a podium here, and he may consign Stephen Codman to his first round of the season where he hasn't picked up a podium, because Codman is close but not quite close enough. These drivers all still trying to max this one out before it's all said and done. He is definitely looking as though right now for Menno Bloem and Stephen Codman, their race may be locked in here unless the traffic has anything to say about it. Meanwhile, James Howarth, he's trying to look for a move, looks up the inside there, Tim van den Ham goes all in, he overcooks a bit, van den Ham looks at the switchback here, coming out to turn 15, it's now going to be a drag race down the start for this straight, and this is a 15th place in the pro class, as we have a slowdown for Nick Stubb. However, with the time he's been leading by, he can afford to serve that very quickly, he doesn't have to worry about losing too much time, and well, we can see van den Ham immediately coming across defensive here, in towards turn number 1, Howarth's going to try and go round the outside, it's for the last few points. Can he get it done through 1? He's going to try and hold it. I don't think he can. Or can he? He's still got about 50% alongside. He's going to go for it to turn 2. Van den Ham in the end lets the corner be extended and takes it back. Well, as he does, we have to leave them, ladies and gentlemen. We take you back to the front of the field because he comes out the final quarter. He may not have started on pole, but he quickly took the lead. He's run away with it. And for Nick Stubb, it's going to be his first win of the season here at the Mugello Grand Prix circuit. Take a bow, good sir. That is domination today here in Italy. And as he weaves his way down, he's celebrating like nobody's business because he's so proud of that. In the second place spot, meanwhile, it's going to be his first second place of the season for Peter Duke. Well done to him, taking the round spot and making it a Mercedes 1-2, head of Menno Bloem, who rounds off the overall pro podium, consigning Stephen Codman then to his first non-podium finish of the season in the Access SimSport Red Mustang. And then we will have Jared Love coming home in 5th place. 3 Mercedes in the top 5. That goes to show how strong the Mercedes has been today. With Adam Baker 6th, just ahead of Mark Johnson, and then he did beat Mark Johnson in the chase. With Christoph Starsboy, he's over the moon with this one. Look at that from the Simcast Racing Team UK driver. The strategy got him into 8th, and he's well and truly earned it. Dean Sheesby will take 9th, and Victor Van Ziest, it's going to be a 3-wide run to line, but I think Van Ziest has just held on for the final spot in the overall top 10 ahead of Tom Cordy and Simon Clifton in a photo finish. And then we will have this man. Here he comes, 15th overall, but it is going to be a first Evo winner of the season for yearning for iRacing. What a perfect drive from him today. Nothing wrong whatsoever. He'll have Tim van den Haren right behind him in a photo finish with James Howarth. And then it'll be Robin Milton, Adam Smith and Steve Rubino. 20th overall, but runner-up in the Evo class there for Hobo Racing, and continues its unstoppable run of podiums as championship leader of the Evo class. We'll have Stuart Rice. Well, look at this, ladies and gentlemen. The Phoenix Racing red driver. He's got something to shout home about. He takes his first podium of the season here at Mugello. Well done to the Phoenix Racing red Aston Martin driver. Just ahead of Rob Gregg, who missed out on the podium, but a fourth place finish. And Andy Chell completes your Evo top 5 in a trio of what is Aston Martin advantages. And Chell won't be too upset about that. Given where he started and where he's finished, he's gained places, and he will be your last lead lap finisher. Well, goodness me, ladies and gentlemen, what a race. And well, as they all cool them down, well, Nick Stubbs already in the pit lane. Such is how quickly he's made his way back on around. But Peter Duke, meanwhile, he'll be looking back at this one today and thinking to himself, you know what, that's the kind of race we want. And the DC Motorsport team definitely scoring some big points here, with Jared Love in that 5th place as well. They'll be a bit gutted that it went wrong for Wayne Douglas, because they could have had all 3 cars inside the top 5 given the pace they were showing. But Duke and Love will make their way down the start finish straight together in celebration for what has been a big score, no doubt about it. And as Orva tries to cool the wound down, we also see David Pilch here with a 13th place finish in the Evo class, 36th overall, taking it nice and easy. Car's pretty low on fuel here, but he'll be thinking that's some more points in the bag and more learning behind the wheel of the car today. Once he calls it off, we call off the circuit side footage and take a look at the scenic view. And of course, with the scenic view comes none other than the race results. So 60 minutes of racing here in round number 4 at the Autodromo Internazionale del Mugello. And what a round it was for Split B in the SimRacing International GT3 Championship Season 10, as brought to you on iRacing and powered by Trophy AI and SimCoach. And we saw Nick Stubb was your winner in the end for Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tech Racing, and what a dominant win by 16 seconds over DC Motorsport's Peter Duke, when Menno Bloem round off your overall and pro podium there for SimRacing Team Lowlands 2. It was a further 2 seconds in the end to Stephen Codman for Axis Sports Red, who had similar pace, but he didn't quite have enough in order to take his way back onto the podium, but the Englishman then followed up by DC Motorsport's Jared Love, who rounded off your top 5. And as Racing's Adam Baker, he finished 6th, and in the end was only ahead of Mark Johnson by 2 attempts at the finish, with the Exodus Sport Red driver not quite able to beat his way back past Baker, but he enjoyed the fight, no doubt about it. Christopher Starswell with a strategic masterclass there, finishing 8th, having leapt his way from 11th to 8th over the distance, and the Simcast Racing Team UK driver will be pleased with the points, and also the fact he finished 7.5 seconds ahead of Moonshiners Racing Club's Dean Sheesby. Victor Van Ziest, he held on to the top 10 there for MJK Sim Racing by only a 10th over Phoenix Racing Green's Tom Cordy, who was best of the rest. And just behind them, of course, was Simon Clifton. We then look to your finishing positions for what were your podium finishes in the Evo class in the overall standings, because, of course, the points are scored in the individual classes. Those results coming up shortly. And as you can see there, Jan Nagy, 15th place for Iris Racing. A brilliant effort from him today, and absolutely untouchable, both in qualifying and also over the race distance. A further, what's 5 places back, we did see in 2nd place there Steve Rubino for Hobo Racing, run up in the Evo class and continues to extend his championship lead quite considerably as a result of this. And then he had to go all the way to 24th overall for 3rd place in Evo, and with a first podium of the season for Phoenix Racing Red, Stuart Rice. And I'll tell you one thing, he's going to be absolutely ecstatic about that one. And I do hope we get the opportunity to have a chat with him in the interview room after today. It was a lap down from 27th place, so James Bostock there, and instead we saw a lap down all the way through to Robert McNaughton. After Dexterous Motorsports Quamar driver, it was then 2 laps down to Matthew Hunter and Robin Pownier, and 3 down to Max Dean, who was your last classified finisher. And we did have unfortunate retirements in the race for Wayne Douglas, James Fraser, Jamie Bardwell, Fotis Katios, Robin Noel Brown, Liam Fraser, and Sinui Alvarez. But coming to then your class finisher positions, because these are the most important statistics. And we start with the Pro class, and here what we can see in Pro is that Nick Stubb for Vulcan Fasters by Glass Tech Racing absolutely dominated after starting 2nd, took the lead and ran away with it. And indeed, Robin Milton seemed to be the driver in control at the front so long as he could keep Stubb behind him, but as soon as Stubb saw the door was open and got into clear air, he was gone. Peter Duke, well, second place finish there for the DC Motorsport driver, gradually made his way into the podium spots, ahead of Menno Bloem for SimRacing Team Lowlands 2, and Stephen Codman there just missing out on the podium, but the Axis SimSport Red driver won't complain about that because it's a good haul of points. Jared Love finishing 5th there for DC Motorsport and will continue to further his campaign inside the top 5 of the championship, ahead of Adam Baker for LS Racing, who's gradually coming on strong as we get into this mid-season, and I do wonder whether we'll see even more from him at Imola in a week's time, with Mark Johnson in 7th for Axis SimSport Red, just watching on 2 tenths behind, and it was a 13-second gap to Christopher Starswell for Simcast Racing Team UK, who will move into the top 10 of the championship most likely as a result of that 8th place. Dean Sheesby for Moonshiners Racing Club fended off the attacks of Victor Van Ziest, with Van Ziest in the end having to focus more on Tom Cordy to make sure he finished in 10th, and the MJK Sim Racing tried them in, followed by Phoenix Racing Green's Cordy, and it was also there a half a tenth to Simon Clifton, the privateer, in the 106. We saw a further 4 seconds behind. It was David Hutchison for Axis SimSport Red, and then we did have the top 15 wrapped up by Jason Hodgson for Phoenix Racing Green after his lap 1 instant did well to recover to finish inside the class top 15 ahead of Tim van den Ham. James Howard finished in 16th place there for Dexterous Motorsport Zemix, ahead of Robin Milton, with Adam Smith, Mark DeVries and Chris Jennings round off the top 20 pro drivers. And then we did have Ross Young behind the Axis SimSport Blue driver in 21st, just ahead of James Bostock, with Mark Van Mulken also a lap down alongside Bostock, 2 laps down to Robin Pownier, and then it was non-finishers classified for Wayne Douglas, Jamie Bardwell, Fotis Katios, Robin Noel Brown and Liam Fraser. Then coming to the Evo class, last but by no means least, and as we can see here, Yanagi, your winner with that brilliant performance, and 10.2 seconds was the victory margin in the end for the Irish Racing McLaren driver. Steve Rubino, the American driver there for Hobo Racing, definitely right now finding a home right on the podium, and he's yet to fall off of it, ahead of Stuart Rice for Phoenix Racing Red with a brilliant 3rd place finish. It was a dogged fight between him and Rob Gregg and Andy Chell, but only one could be on the podium out of the 3 Aston Martin drivers, and it was him, with the Moonshiners Racing Club and Quakemas Motorsport drivers following up. Denny Ploger took 6th place at MJK Sim Racing, just ahead there of Gareth Newton. And then we did have, from the GPX SimSport Vertex driver, it was none other than Phoenix Racing Red's Paul Maffey, and also Callum Morra for LS Racing, and Matt Stace for Flatline Racing, with both Morra and Stace enjoying one of the best performances of the season. Alex Boniface was best to rest in a length for Dexterous Motorsport Zemix, ahead of Eduardo Andino, who started practically last in the running order and did a good job of finishing in 12th in the end for LS Racing, ahead of David Pilcher, with DC Motorsports Dave Collier and Robert McNaughton for Dexterous Motorsports Kumar, completing a top 15. It was 2 laps down to Matthew Hunter for Simcast Racing Team UK. And then we did see Max Dean, James Fraser and Sunil Alvarez complete the running order, albeit non-finishers as classified for both Fraser and Alvarez as we understand it. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes your rundown of the provisional race results, subject to any stewards' inquiries. But it doesn't conclude today's broadcast, of course, because back in approximately 5 minutes' time, we'll be back for our post-round interviews with our volunteer drivers. Don't go anywhere, because there are definitely going to be some interviews you'll want to hear.
Of the green flag, and there we go. Tristan immediately getting the jump on his teammate Luke Lucchese, and he's going to have to go the long way around the outside. It's not done yet because Luke will have that favoured inside line going into turn 1 side by side. Has had a good start. He's up 2 places around the outside of Luke Lucchese, 3 wide there. The blue Acura on the inside. Hayden Phoenix Miller has gone from 4th to 1st in the matter of 1 braking zone there, and he will carry these drivers now down in toward turn 4. Great start there for the debutant who had strong qualifying pace, and now he might be up with an opportunity of making that stick if he can get the clean air in the next, and Plurg could have a good run here. Let's ride on board. How does the Noblica defend going into the chicane? Is Plurg going to do that tactic where you just stay there right until the last Noblica moves over to the entry into the chicane? Good driving. That's a wobble by Tristan, and he's off the road. He's going to lose the position. Is he going to stick up the inside? No. And is Justin Eloff going to fancy his chances? No, he stays.
Watkins Glen, and to have only 9 minutes till we reset and go again gives, I think, the drivers a bit of a moment to pause for thought, because how are you going to manage this, especially if you're 3 wide down the main straight? Humphrey, Leskinen, Catrali, all don't get out Raj Halparida 2x2 into the opening corner. Outside line taken for Humphreys. Also a little bit of time on the exit though, as it looks like it's a better run for Kalle Leskinen, the leader now in that pro class, as they run their way up the hill through 2 and 3. It looks like Raz Harper's got the best run, and now we could see both elite drivers come through on both pro drivers. So they'll have to get it done on the outside of the bus stop, and that is going to be more than difficult to do. Who's going to get the slipstream? That could be crucial.
And as we now head towards the line, the first round of the season in the America's GT Challenge is underway, and there's a bit of a check-up on the second row of the grid there, as some of the guys have to really slow down and keep it under wraps. But now as they go into the first corner for the first time, hopefully everybody keeping it nice and clean. We'll have to see just how they do. All the GTEs making their way through. Obviously there's a bit of a gap back to the GT3s. They have their own race starting separately, and it's Justin Elov ahead of Alex.
Getting a bit busy though towards the front of the GT. There's a bit of bump drafting. Perry's in here as well. Tim's looking to try and find his way through. Brian Wildmon at the back of this pack as well. Hayden Miller getting the big old push from Perry as they work their way towards the opening corner. I think it's probably quite smart from Tim there just to keep Hayden closer to the front too, because if Hayden loses out, they all lose out. So he's not necessarily going for that move.
Go for it as he looks all the way in towards the S's. 2 by 2 they go behind Christopher Wandler and Moss there. Well, they have swapped places back to how they were. And well, this is going to be Williams. A small tap between the two of them. They just about survive it. And in the end, Archie Williams is going to make the move. Stick around the outside. That's bold. That's brave. But that's how you get it done. And more across the line he goes. And now Christopher Wandler also ahead there as Bobby Moss gets forward. And now they make the way down. You can see he's pulling over there, Darren. He's not happy. He knows he's vulnerable.
He does. He's just defending that inside line. He knows it's difficult to walk around the outside into the S's. Barry Nuevo is going to try it though. He's got a great run, and he's already passed. He's already passed before we get to the corner. Easy as you like. And Wildmon can do absolutely nothing to defend there. The exit wasn't too poor from the Ford Mustang, but there's too much pace in that Corvette in the straight line. And Barry Nuevo just waves bye-bye. Easy for the 77.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, there were definitely some absolutely brilliant performances here today in Italy. But you know what? We're going to kick off with one driver who definitely stood out above the rest. He may not have won his race, but he definitely did very well to make his way all the way from an 8th place start in the Evo class to a 3rd place finish. He joins me now, and it is none other than joining me than Stuart Rice. Good evening to you, Stuart. And well, what a performance for yourself today. You started 8th in class, you finished 3rd, it's your first podium of the season, and it's great to see you back on the steps. How do you feel, good sir?
It is excellent. Mugello's one of those tracks that it's a Marmite circuit. I love and I hate it in some ways. So being able to actually be on pace is actually not surprising, but more than I expected, I think is the way to explain it.
Well, it's good to see you on the pace and delivering more than expected. And, of course, this season has been one of those seasons where it's been a bit of a step back, moved to Evo class, new car as well, the Aston Martin, and it's been gradually clicking together. Were you coming into this round perhaps expecting an even better result? 'Cause you've been on an upward trend since the start of the season.
Yeah, if I'm honest, I came in... I've always tried to get a podium this season. I think just a podium is where I've sort of set my sights initially, because the two aheads are a lot quicker in sort of overall pace, I'd say, in terms of every circuit so far. The main thing is just consistency is something I'm trying to work on. So podium is exactly where I was aiming for. So I'm very happy with the fact that I've actually been able to get to that point.
Well, you've been able to nail the podium, but along the way, it was a bit of a difficult start. What happened in qualifying? Because we saw a lot of pace from yourself in the race, but qualifying, perhaps just not able to deploy that pace?
I think qualifying, I did come up against a lot of traffic, which is it's not a downside to open qualifying. It's the reason I like open qualifying. It actually spices it up a bit and makes it more interesting. It was just getting unlucky with cars coming out the pits. It's something that I have a lot. And it's just a case of trying to find those gaps, and it just didn't really fall properly. And by the end of it, it was too late to pit back and get fresh tyres. So, to be honest, I was just sort of sighting for the final few laps because the tyres had basically gone off about 5 minutes towards the end, so there wasn't enough time.
Well, that's absolutely fair. So it didn't quite work out in qualifying because of the traffic, and then, like you say, using the final couple laps more as sighting laps. But you definitely picked up some good sights and sounds, because when the racing got underway, we saw you very quickly get into work trying to make up some places and battling with several drivers. How was it for those first few laps? Because this is one of those circuits where, after the initial scuffle into turn one, it's almost as if it's follow the leader.
It does feel a bit of a conga line going down through most of these corners, but there are a surprising amount of corners you can overtake on. It is just a case of hoping that other drivers work with you, because the only way you can make moves here is either by full sending it or by running side by side through corners that don't feel like they should be side by side. So yeah, the first initial few laps were just a case of trying to keep going without getting caught up in any instance, get past the first 5 laps, and then sort of try and make the move forward from there after I've got an idea of where my tyres are at.
Well, once you got an idea of where your tyres were, and appreciate the insights there with regards to the ability to overtake, we saw you start to make some overtakes, but in particular, there was an absolute monster sequence between yourself, Rob Gregg and Andy Chell. 3 Aston Martins go into a corner at Mugello. It sounds like a really bad motorsporting pub joke, but it was no joke. It was serious, and it was brilliant racing. I mean, how was that from your perspective?
If I'm honest, absolute props to Chell, and I'm not sure who it was, to be fair. If you say it was Greg, I'll have to take your word on that. But it was just good racing all round, and it is nice to see iRacing for once, touchwood, playing ball with netcode. It has got a lot better, which is one positive, but I've said it so many times myself, is a contact is probably going to happen anyway if netcode exists. So it's just down to good, fair, and very, very low, very, very fine margins racing, and that's the best way to do it. And I really enjoyed that. So absolutely props to the other 2 drivers involved there as well.
Well, like you say, fine margins racing, but through fine margins, you're able to gain those places. And when it did go wrong for Denny Ploger with the 40-second time penalty he'd picked up due to, I believe, what may have been at speeding in the pit lane, it meant suddenly what was a fight for 4th at the time was now promoted to a fight for 3rd. And by the time you finished your pit stops, you were the main man for that final podium position. At what point did it click? You are now in 3rd place in Evo.
When I was halfway down the hill and I looked at it and went, wait, when did I get to 3rd? It was literally that. I had no idea Denny had gone into the pits or got any penalty. I had absolutely zero idea. So it was just a case of I was in 4th on the left. I then concentrated on getting up the hill and over the top, and then I was in 3rd. So if I'm honest, it threw me a little bit, but yeah, I didn't. It's all just happened.
Well, it all happened at relatively short notice, but from that point onwards, it looked as though you had a bit more control over the position, with Rob Gregg chasing you and Andy Chell a bit further behind. So I can imagine those final few laps, it was keep an eye on the relative very soft, but otherwise just get this home for your first podium.
Pretty much. Obviously, Greg was catching, so it was just a case of not over driving the car, because it's very easy to fall into the trap of someone's coming behind me, I need to push, when my front tyres were understeering at the time. So it's a case of just forcing yourself to drive within the car's current limits, because it was mighty understeery towards the end. It lost a lot of front end. So it was just a case of getting it home, basically.
Well, you brought it home, and in the end, with that, 24th on the road, 3rd in class, a huge result. And, well, you've achieved your target of securing your first podium of the season, so I guess the question now is, when can we expect you to get another?
I'm hoping that I get to the podium next week. It's just a case of getting the setup right, because the Aston has no setups out there in the wild. It has to be built basically from scratch or from a baseline that someone's produced. So I'm feeling comfortable with it. I'd like to get another podium, but I've never one to fully go, yes, I'm going to push for that. I just sort of push for it and then get there. It's a little bit different to how some do it, but yeah.
Well, whether it's different from how others do it or not, you're unique definitely in the fact that you're able to try and get the most out of the car week in, week out. And you mentioned there, or alluded to, Imola that's upcoming. Is it a circuit that you enjoy?
It's sort of like Mugello again. I very much like it because it's flowing, but it's very tight and it's very easy to make mistakes. So it's going to be a case of making sure the setup is stable rather than making sure the setup is necessarily absolutely rapid, because Imola breeds incidents. So it's going to be more of a consistency circuit again, I think, a bit like Mugello.
Well, fair play to you, and I think you're very astute there in saying that Imola does breed instants, but we'll see whether you can have a race without instant next week. But just before we do let you go, as always, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast?
I'd say, as per usual, the team. That's a standard one, Phoenix Racing overall. Incidentally, Andy Chell for actually sort of working with me when we were trying to get past James Fraser, I believe it was. Where I had to bump draft him down the straight and just hope that he understood what I meant, which he did. Which was, I'm putting you in front of Fraser so you can block him from making a dive, because that was what he was doing every single time you left the door open. So it was trying to make that work. But yeah, it's a main thank you to Andy Chell for actually really good hard racing. And James Fraser, for that matter, as well.
Oh, brilliant. And indeed, thank you for correcting me there. It was James Fraser, like you say.
Oh, it was, okay.
In the trio. Well, it's come back to you eventually there, now you've had time to breathe. But with that, Stuart, it's been an absolute pleasure to have you join me in the interview room. Well done on a return to the podium, indeed. It's been long overdue, but it's so great to have you up there. Savour the moment, enjoy it, and we'll see you at Imola in a week's time.
Thanks very much.
So hearing there, ladies and gentlemen, from Stuart Rice. Third place, absolutely over the moon about it, and talking there about the contrasting fortunes of the open qualifying and where he wasn't quite able to deliver the laps he wanted, but in the race, a very different animal, and indeed able to try and pick his way through. Remarking on the fun he had battling with James Fraser and also Andy Chell, and particularly in there, giving the big shout out to Andy Chell for the two Aston Martin drivers working together in a bit of an enemy of my enemy is my friend approach in order to push each other along and get past the late braking at Porsche Fraser. But that's sometimes what you got to do. You got to try and work together and then use those quick allegiances in order to gain and then suddenly break those allegiances and make the progress. And that was for fourth. And when Denny Plugger did have the race penalty, suddenly Stuart Rice was all the way up into third, and he never looked back from that point onwards, other than when the fast approaching Rob Gregg was getting closer and closer in the last couple of laps. You'd hear the happiness in his voice, albeit taking it round by round, and now he's got a lot of work to do to get accustomed to this Aston Martin as the season goes on. For Imola, he'll be hoping for a round without instant, and if so, could he add another podium to the mix? Well, we'll find out in a week's time, ladies and gentlemen. But more interviews coming up, and well, your next interview is only 20 seconds or so away. So we return, ladies and gentlemen, and what we're going to do, we're going to stay on the theme of Evo drivers, and we're going to come from a third place finish on the podium to our winner in the class, and joining me now is none other than Jan Nagy. Jan, what a brilliant performance from yourself today and the iRacing team. Victory after an incredible pole position. I mean, where did that come from?
It's my first one. I'm so happy. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's my first time here at Mugello, and I think I trained for like 6 hours at least, and it was so slippery, the track. The car understeered all the time, but the temperature dropped during the evening, so I managed to get a good lap, one of the last, I think, for and got it to a good time for the pole position, and well, then I just floored it. And I avoid everything the first lap. That's so hard, but I think the first lap was really good. Not so much accidents, so I'm really happy.
Oh, indeed. Well, you sound it, and well, like you say, a brilliant pole lap, and then just flooring it at the start, avoiding the instance. Although I do have to ask, as the race went on, there's nobody in Evo near you, but there are plenty of pros. How was that in terms of managing the race? Now, you don't need to battle them, but at some points you're actually faster than them.
Yes, there's no... why should you battle a guy from another class? you can just let them pass if they are faster than you to avoid all the incidents and stuff. But I had a good look at the list and I saw that I had some places between me and the second guy, so it was really no problem. Just go with the flow.
Absolutely fair to go with the flow, like you said. I really like that attitude. And because you were leading by such a margin, did you change your strategy at all, or did you go with the strategy you had planned?
No, as planned. So the setup was great, and there was just a little bit understeer, and I was really afraid for the understeer that the tires would get hot, but I managed to do that in a good way. So it was an excellent race, I think. I'm so happy. First win. No, I won the first race in season 7, but then after that I've been struggling a lot.
Well, it definitely shows, because a third place last time out, of course. Now this, a win. I mean, you arrived a little bit late because Steve Rubino's been hogging the win so far, but now you've taken one away from him. I have to ask, are we going to see this more from yourself as the season goes on?
Yes, I'm going to be in all the races for season 10. The first one I was on the West Coast fishing lobster, so I couldn't participate. But now I have to do with me all the rest of season 10.
Oh, fantastic. We look forward to seeing you mix it up with everyone in the Evo class. You're definitely going to keep things interesting. And as for next round, Imola, how do you fancy the circuit?
I like it. I like it a lot. So I know the circuit quite good, and I think it's really, really fun to drive as well. So I'm looking forward to it.
Oh, brilliant. And we look forward to seeing whether you can make it back-to-back wins, or at least back-to-back podiums at Imola. But Jan, just before I do let you go, is there any way you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast?
Yes, my teammate Jan Östberg in iRacing. So iRacing, it's we are celebrating our parents, Jan's mother and my mother and father. So that's Iris is the name of Jan's mother, the other Jan. So cheers, mate, Jan. You'll be winning the next time. So I'm so happy.
Oh, brilliant. Well, that's really sweet, the team name, and also give the shout out there to your teammate as well. And we look forward to seeing Mr. Östberg on the grid in the near future. But today, it's definitely been a round for you to celebrate, Jan, because you've been absolutely incredible. A dominant win in Evo, a return to the top step after 3 seasons away. We couldn't ask for more. Enjoy it, savour it, my friend, and we will see you on the grid in a week's time at Imola.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from a very happy Jan Nagy, and well, you can understand why he's so happy for iRacing. What a performance there. And talking about the fact in qualifying, it all just clicked together when he delivered those laps. And after delivering it, he didn't look back, because when he went racing, his goal was survive lap 1 and then just put the floor down and run away with it. And he did exactly that. Of course, there was a bit of chaos in front of him, surviving all the pro drivers who went a bit sideways through turns 2 through to 5. But once he'd done that, there wasn't really any trouble. And when asked about the fact that what do you do when you get close to the back of the pro drivers in front, he said, well, given the gap I had to the rest of the Evo class, I just backed off. There's no point me fighting with them. All I need to do is beat my rival. So a very smartly driven race. And when you've got that much of a gap, well, you can imagine he's announced himself on the scene after missing the first race, because, of course, he was lobster fishing, which I must admit, I'm a bit envious there. I hope he caught a good one and enjoyed it. But round number 2, of course, was a nightmare, finished outside the top 10. Last time out, it was a 3rd place. Now the win. And, well, he's announced himself on the scene. And, well, for Steve Rubino and many of his peers in the Evo class, you can imagine the iRacing driver right now is definitely suddenly a force to be reckoned with, and in good time too, because when they head to Imola, he's looking forward to it, and we look forward to seeing whether he can make it back-to-back victories. But more interviews coming up, ladies and gentlemen, and because we've had plenty of volunteers, we've got 2 more interviews to come today. We're doing a 3rd and a 4th interview, but interview number 3 is just around the corner. Well, ladies and gentlemen, we go from a very happy winner, first-time winner in the Evo class, to now a driver who joins us for the first time in the interview room. And it is going to be none other than Tom Cordy, who joins me now. Tom, great to have you with us for the first time this season in the interview room. A very interesting race from yourself. Started 16th in Pro, end up finishing 11th, but along the way, the common theme was, I don't think you spent more than 1 lap without battling with somebody. How was it?
It was incredible. It was, yeah, the qualifying wasn't too bad. The first quali session I think has been reasonably okay with, apart from the pre-season race at Hockenheim. I really enjoyed this track. Just seemed to click with it straight away. It was a lot of fun. And yeah, on the first lap there was a couple of spinners right in front of me, and I was out on the gravel trying to avoid it and didn't want to do an unsafe rejoin and ruin other people's races. So I just fairly gently got back on the track, but in the process lost about 15 spots, I think. So I just got my head down, tried to get over it and get my way through, and it was amazing fun. Loved it. Had a couple of places on the track where I knew I was alright and quite good under braking. So yeah, loved it. It was brilliant. Absolutely loved it.
Oh, fantastic. Well, I can definitely hear it in your voice how much you've enjoyed it today. And, well, firstly, well done on avoiding getting too caught up in what happened at the start, although it is unfortunate that you did end up losing places, because I think many will now join me in asking, what could have you done if you hadn't lost those places? Could you have actually finished inside the top 10? But still, it's not about how you start, it's about how you finish the race. And over the distance, we saw you getting stuck in time and time again. But I have to ask, did it change your strategy at all? Because I can imagine with the amount of pressure you were putting on your tyres and also the fuel tank, it might have been a bit more of a difficult to manage race.
Yeah. It didn't seem too bad, to be honest. I felt a couple of times the tyres went off a little bit, so I tried to back off a bit to bring them back up to life and take a bit of temperature out of them, and they stayed with it. It was the car felt just nailed the whole hour. Really good. Best race I've had for this series, and it's my first one. I'm very new to iRacing and very new to GT3. This is my 5th race in the league. I've never done GT3 before, so learning a hell of a lot as I'm going, as you can tell with the results. But yeah, it's this league is incredible. It's exactly what I'm looking for the whole time, and just learning a lot from everyone and trying to just reset myself if something happens. Knowing it's a long race and got a lot of things that happen. Generally they do, and that sort of helps a lot of the way. I generally try and avoid the carnage. I not see it coming in a way in a lot of spins and stuff. And just about narrow my way through some of the spinners. Yeah, it's awesome.
Well, definitely a long learning experience, shall we say, but, well, an awesome experience for yourself. And it's so great to hear that you're enjoying yourself as much as you are and you're drawing upon it each and every lap you turn. Although, one question I think we do have to ask is, why did you pick the McLaren?
Yeah, I was in the Ferrari to begin with because I did the Ferrari challenge right in one of the first seasons on iRacing. Then they moved it to the C class. But no, they changed the challenge. So I was quite used to the way the Ferrari handles. And then joined Phoenix, and Grant gave me some advice on other options that might be better than the Ferrari. And the McLaren the advice was a little bit more predictable and planted and similar technique to the Ferrari. And yeah, that's exactly how I see it as well. It's very predictable. It's very safe. It's not going to spit you out. It's something really predictable. You can rely on it in a long race like this. When you your brain is not quite focused 100% all the time, you can really rely on it. It's quite forgiving. But I've been playing around with a couple of cars in the maintenance mode, demo drives, the Merc and stuff. Might change. I don't know, but I'm loving the McLaren. Loving the team. A lot of good advice from Phoenix and Grant and everyone in the team. Really, really helpful. And exactly what I needed to with a brand new guy to GT3.
Well, it's great to hear that you're enjoying the McLaren. I appreciate you giving us the overview there, that transition from the Ferrari to the McLaren, and similar, but getting a little bit more out of it. And also the fact working with the Phoenix Racing Green team and the wider team has been so helpful. Of course, towards the end of the race, we did see you in an absolutely close freeway battle between yourself and also, I do believe, Simon Clifton, who in the end lost out. You slightly missed out on finishing in 10th place, just losing out there in the very end, unless I'm mistaken, to none other than what was Victor Van Ziest. But a very fun last few laps.
That was incredible. I was trying to pressure Victor for a good few laps, and I was behind Robin, my teammate, as well, even before that, and he was trying to battle with Victor. Robin came in, so I was then behind Victor. Tried to have a few goals, but he was really consistent and clean and fair. It was really good. And that I could see the cars bunching up towards the end. There was about 4 or 5 of us, and I thought there might be something. Couldn't believe that everyone closing up on the last corner. Managed to get some good drive off the last corner, and yeah, what a finish! That's what you want, right? Just to go straight over the line. And I think I got a bit excited and didn't change up to 6 at the end, so I missed out on that 10th. But to be honest, going into this race, to say I would have been in the top 10, I'd have snapped around it. So 11th.
Oh, absolutely fair. I mean, the fact that you're so close to a top 10, what would have been your first of the season, I'm sure it will come eventually. And what a brilliant conclusion to a brilliant race from yourself. So when we head to Imola next week, can we expect you to get your first top 10 there?
No, unfortunately I'm away in Spain for Imola with work, so I'm going to have to miss that one, which is a bit gutting. It's a really good track, that one. So I'm looking forward to Gilles Villeneuve, which I'm really looking forward to that because it's a lot of heavy stops and I quite enjoy getting in the heavy braking zones. And I've enjoyed it from like past games I've played F1. It's very different. The track's got a nice flow and a lot of heavy stops, so I'm looking forward to that one after the work trip. So unfortunately I will miss him. It's a shame. But in a bit of a streak of building pace up a bit, but I think Imola is a really tough track. Very technical. I really struggled in Portimão last week. Just couldn't find a place at all. I'm thinking there would be a similar struggle, but Gilles Villeneuve should be better for me, I think.
Well,
but yeah, love the broadcast. It's fantastic. Love watching the streams.
Oh, fair play. Well, we'll miss seeing you at Imola. I mean, I'll definitely be a little bit sad not to see you out there giving it your all. But then again, work trip calls and it's understandable. So I have to wait to see how your story continues at Gilles Villeneuve. And Tom, just before we do let you go, is there anyone you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to live on the broadcast tonight?
I think thank you to the wife and kids for letting me have the time to do this hobby. And massive thank you to Grant at Phoenix for welcoming me into the team, and all the lads at Phoenix for all of the support and help to help it on the way. And thank you. Loved it.
Well, Tom, of course, we need to give a big thank you to yourself for volunteering to join us for an interview this evening. It's so great to hear your story from Mugello today and how well you're taking to the championship and also to your McLaren and the Phoenix Racing team. Of course, we won't see you for a couple of weeks, but when you do come back for Gilles Villeneuve, we look forward to plenty more and whether you can deliver that first top 10 of your season. But until then, my friend, have a great rest of your evening and, well, a great time away in Spain.
You too, Paul. Take care, mate. Bye-bye.
So hearing there, ladies and gentlemen, from Tom Cordy. We do apologise slightly for the line there, but I think we could make out most of what he was saying. And, well, to be fair to him, the Phoenix Racing Green driver really enjoying himself. And talking about the fact there that qualifying one side of the story, and in the end being able to just absolutely go all in when it came to the race. And that was the approach he took. Albeit, his qualifying start was very quickly scuppered by the incidents that happened in front of him over what was the first few corners, and therefore had to take to the grass and the gravel, but he managed to survive it all, and then he was on a charge trying to cut his way through the field. And the example of it being as he cut his way out the inside of Mark de Vries. And the whole goal was, of course, to pick up the places as quickly as he could and move towards the top 10. New to the league, new to GT3 machines, and particularly new to this McLaren, and therefore really learning as he goes with the Phoenix Racing Green team. I can tell you one thing, in the first 4 rounds he has learnt a lot, and he is definitely becoming one of the fast learners in this pro class. It is brilliant to see Tom Cordy doing so well and enjoying himself as well. He was a bit gutted to miss out on the top 10, having upshifted to 6th accidentally in his excitement down the final stretch to the checkered flag, but to be fair, small mistakes like that, they can be ironed out, and I suspect when we see him come back at Circuit Charles Villeneuve in a couple of rounds time, we're going to see him absolutely on prime form, as long as he can keep that momentum together. And I wonder there whether we'll see his first top 10 or whether he could go even higher as the season goes on. But ladies and gentlemen, we do have one more interview just coming up very shortly, and well, we're going to stick with a pro class driver, but we're going to carry a similar theme as well compared to our Evo drivers we interviewed. That might give you an idea of who we're interviewing as our last interviewee. We'll be back very shortly. And well, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, our final interview of this evening is going to be a man who's been incredibly patient, but he had zero patience to wait around in the race and take victory. It's Nick Starr. Good evening to you, Nick. And well, what a race from yourself. I mean, you may have missed out on pole position by 300ths, but you took the lead in this race and you were gone, good sir. Something tells me qualifying that wasn't your best lap out there, and you wanted to prove to everyone in the race how quick you were.
Yeah, true. Like, I was gutted to not get pole, to be honest. And I did not expect it, to be fair, because I joined practice and I did a few laps and I was like, okay, it's gonna be one of those again, like the first 2 races. And I was P8, I think. And with 15 minutes to go in qualifying, I put less fuel in the setup. I made the final tweaks, and yeah, it really paid off. And I was gutted to not get pole.
Oh, goodness me. I mean, I can hear it in your voice, the fact you were gutted to miss out on pole position, because we have historically seen you go very well in the Mercedes at circuits like Mugello, circuits with sweeping bends and just a lot of natural speed. But that was qualifying. Let's talk a little bit about the race. Yourself and Robin Milton both get off to a good start. You put the pressure onto Robin, and the first couple of laps, he's not giving in. And then suddenly, you're all over the back of him at lap after lap. I mean, how was it dealing with that dirty air?
It wasn't as bad as I thought, but had a bad start. Initial bad start, of course, because I was all drivers behind got us alongside me, and once I got P2 back after turn 2 and 3, I took off and couldn't catch Robin in the first. But I don't know what happened to him, but after 2 laps his pace went. I don't know where it went, but it just went. And I was behind his back. But yeah, the dirty air wasn't as bad. I don't know why, but yeah, not bad.
Well, the dirty air wasn't too bad, and in the end, it didn't take you long to try and make the move and make it stick. I mean, you had to be a bit forceful, but I could imagine that's the classic, I'm coming through, and I'm going to come through, or I'm collecting you with it, because you went all in for that move for the lead.
I already went full on in the last corner, the previous lap, and then I tapped him, which I got the CRX for, and it was not meant to be, of course. Took the wider line and got this in a slipstream, and I was like, oh, okay, I have to do this now, otherwise we're gonna end up in the gravel in turn 3 or 4, I think. So yeah, I stuck the move, and he saw me coming, of course, and I got the car rotated and slowed down enough to hit the apex, and it got me the place.
Well, you made it happen with a classic move, no doubt about it. And then going over the remainder of the distance, at this point, just extending the gap lap after lap. I mean, just take us through as well, as a leader, you're coming up on traffic here at Mugello. What's it like having to deal with cars, whether they're fighting or just by themselves? Because I can imagine fighting with somebody, that's a challenge in its own, but trying to extend the lead and trying to put laps on other cars, that's not easy here.
No, it's not, especially after my pit stop with traffic coming up. Some people are just putting their car on the side and just let you by. Some people just don't, because you don't need to. Of course, it's not particularly in the rules that you have to let them by. But yeah, sometimes it's annoying and sometimes you have to deal with it and then like, okay, I'll make a move on that point of the track or where it can, like not in the fast sections, because you'll both end up in a crash. But yeah, it was difficult, it was a challenge, but I made it through and yeah, maintained the gap at the end, which was already enough, of course.
I mean, it was already enough, and then you decided to extend it by 3 times that amount, Nick. I mean, as far as everyone's watching right now, I think we can all say that you've definitely shown today that you are the master of Mugello. And, well, it follows after a brilliant podium at Portimão last week. Is this what we can expect from you now, week in and week out, is podiums and wins aplenty?
Hopefully. I'm gonna do my very best every week, as I of course always do. But I'm gonna do even more my best to maintain this streak and get more wins, yeah.
Well, of course, the next challenge, we stay in Italy, but we head to Imola. What are your thoughts of the other Italian circuit?
It's a pleasure to drive. I think I got my second league race win there 2 seasons ago. It was the season where I also won Mugello, so yeah, I don't know. Let's hope for the best, stay out of trouble and make a good setup again.
Oh, indeed. I do remember that quite well, you taking that win 2 seasons ago. And indeed, I think you might get the nickname of the Italian Stallion from the Netherlands there because of how quick you are at Italian circuits. But, of course, with that, just before we do let you go, is there anybody you'd like to give a shout out or a thank you to on the broadcast tonight?
Thanks. I want to give a shout out to Maarten Reinders. He's always in chat supporting me. And I want to give a big thanks to Matt Hoyland and Owen Stewart, my teammates, staying in chat and chatting about and yeah, getting through the race every week.
Well, Nick, we have to give a big thank you to yourself as well for putting on an absolutely brilliant display today for a superb win, first and foremost. Your first of the season, which really brings you into contention, but also for joining me for a post-race interview. It's been an absolute pleasure, and we look forward to seeing whether you can repeat your double Italian victory from Season 8 next week at Imola. And if so, well, history would say if it's repeated itself, you're definitely going to be one of our championship contenders. But we'll find out then. But until then, my friend, have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you, mate. You too. It's been my pleasure.
So here and there, ladies and gentlemen, from our final interview of this evening, Nick Stubb. And well, very pleased with himself there, no doubt about it. And that's what I love about talking to Nick. He's very straightforward with things. And I think even he sometimes slightly amazes himself with what he's able to do. Although very interesting to hear that he didn't feel uncomfortable in the dirty air of Robin Milton in the early stage of the race. Now, I don't think he's putting this on. I think he's being genuine, to be fair. I think he was genuinely surprised at how the car felt running so close behind the Acura, and with Robin having some difficulty as well after the first couple of laps, and that enabled him to be able to get nice and close and then make the move for the lead. And he mentioned the fact he'd already gone for it once into the final corner. He had really gone all in on the move. If he'd gone any closer, I think he would have licked the stamp and sent it, and he did it a second time, which is where we caught the change of lead. And for Nick Stubb, well, he wanted that lead and he just bolted away from it. But he also talked about there the challenge at Mugello of trying to carve away through traffic, where some drivers, even though they don't have to, when the blue flags come up, they immediately step aside, meanwhile others hold their racing lines. And the rulebook does say, regards to those blue flags, as if I remember it correctly, that all that is expected is that the driver in front drives predictably and the faster driver behind has to find a way through. And that being the challenge for Nick Stubb, where he passed that challenge with flying colours and has taken his first win of the season to go with that podium last time out at Portimão. Well, if he carries on this momentum and repeats his theatrics from Season 8, a win at Imola would put him right inside that top 3 nice and early, and it would see him very quickly start to close down none other than Stephen Codman and Menno Bloem. So I think they'll be watching this right now and thinking, we've now got a new challenger in our midst, and Nick Stubb is not showing any signs of slowing down. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, that concludes our interviews for today. And we need to say a big thank you to all 4 of our interviews. A bumper edition of interviews today because we had so many volunteers. I think we had 10 volunteers when we could only pick 4 in the end, a maximum, because we're conscious of time and the fact that everyone needs to get a bit of rest. But we want to say a big thank you firstly to our 2 Evo class interviews of Stuart Rice for Phoenix Racing Red, with his first podium of the season in Evo class, and also to race winner and dominant driver today in Evo of Jan Nagy for iRacing there with his first win of the season. We also then had the interviews with both Tom Cordy and Nick Stubb in the Pro class. A big thank you to them as well for the Phoenix Racing Green and Vulcan Fastest by Class Tech Racing drivers, with Tom Cordy making his first interview and talking about his enjoyment of the league and almost sealing his first top 10 of the season, whereas Nick Stubb there talking about what has been an absolute monster of a win after a surprise second place in qualifying when he thought he might have had it on pole. Big thank you to them all for their time, and well done to all 4 of our drivers for their race performances, and we look forward to plenty more from them next round. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, it's now time for us to wrap up. Thank you very much for watching, and if you have enjoyed today's show, and perhaps you're sat there right now wanting to know more about SimRacing International in terms of our series and how you can be on the grid or even just part of the community, well, firstly, series-wise, you've been tuning in today to the Trophy.ai sponsored GT3 Championship Season 10, which runs every Thursday evening. But if you're more of a GT3 person, but you've got to be a bit of a weekend warrior with it, well, of course, on Sunday evenings, we do have the UK Sim Racing Community Series, and that is on Sundays every week, and indeed plenty of GT3 action there. If you're a Sunday racer, but you want something a little bit different, perhaps you're more of a multi-class person, well, currently heading towards its midway point is the America's GT Challenge that runs on alternate Sunday evenings, and that is a mixture of GT3 and GTE machines, and it has proven incredibly popular and close. We also do have a new season of racing upcoming that's expected to be on Mondays in the future, more on that to come in due course. And if you're not looking for something that's a bit more competitive, perhaps you're looking for something a bit more casual, well, we do have a free-to-join practice league which runs every Tuesday evening and also on Saturday mornings at 10 a.m. So there's never been a better time to get on the grid at SimRacing International, and to do that and for plenty more, all we need to do is join the official Discord using the invite link at the bottom of your screen. But we also want to take a moment to say a big thank you to our series and league sponsors, who do include, of course, Trophy.ai, Kame, Modern Technology, SimCoach, where you can unlock your true potential as a sim racer, the GP2 Group, and also Motorsport UK's esports division for their continued recognition of us here at SRI as a recommended community. We're very grateful for that recognition, and long may our relationship with Motorsport UK's esports division continue. But with that, ladies and gentlemen, well, that was round number 4. And next time out, we remain in Italy, but we head to the Autodromo Internazionale Enzo E. Dino Ferrari, named after the man behind Ferrari and his son, and at Imola in round number 5 on Thursday, the 23rd of October 2025. Could we see the championship standings suddenly take a turn for the different? Because in the Pro Class today, we have seen Nick Stubb formally announce himself on the scene, and another win would see them seal the gap between Stephen Codman and Menno Bloem, with Codman finish off the podium for the first time this season at the Mugello circuit. But only one place, it is all now very much to play for in the Pro Championship. As for Evo, well, it does seem as though Steve Rubino is still the man to beat. 4 podiums on the bounce with 2 wins in 2 seconds. We've had Jan Nagy announce himself, and also plenty of other drivers picking up the pace, and therefore the Evo class is just about to intensify. So for all that and more, you definitely want to tune in next time, there's no doubt about it, because we will be there on Thursday the 23rd of October to see how the first half of the season concludes. But until then, this has been the SimRacing International GT3 Championship Season 10. I've been your host and commentator in Split B, Paul Walsh, also known as TX141 or Britain Split, depending on what media you follow me on. And until next time, remember to stay safe, stay well, stay smiling, and most importantly, ladies and gentlemen, like our drivers, remember to stay on track. Good night.
For the upcoming right-hander, brake 30 meters later and ease off the pressure.